if someone doesn't have a mast and needs one, I think we have some somewhere. But
No.
and anyone who, you know, for us, once we're 6 feet apart, we have the option to remove our. Doesn't have a mast and needs one, I think we have some somewhere. Who is that?
It's
And
you.
anyone who, you know, for us, once we're 6 feet apart, we have the option to remove our.
That's you.
The shade,
That's the online
It's
feed.
the playback. Oh,
That's scary.
the shade you just gave
I didn't even
yourself
recognize my own voice. It's even worse.
was memorable.
Commissioners who are sitting up here have the option, because we're spaced 6 feet apart from each other.
We gotta make light of it.
Okay, this isn't working.
Commissioners who are sitting up here have the option, because we're spaced 6 feet apart from each other.
Say 6.
It's like a delayed echo, right?
That's a good one.
Anyways, we have the option to remove our mask because we are spaced 6 feet apart from each other, and that's in consistent.
In light green and dark green with wetlands outlined in blue. The proposal in front of you is, as I said at the last meeting, for an open space. Light green and dark the proposal in front of you is, as I said at the last meeting, for an open space.
Pretty close.
That we can have 44 lots, and we propose in 36. The proposed, at the last meeting, there were some questions from the chair and from the public. 44 lots, and we propose in 36. The proposed, at the last meeting, there were some. .4% of the wetland area. So you'll have the wetland area, and then all this area here, it's open space, is upland, and whoever came for the walk. So you'll have the wetland area, and then all this area here, it's open space, is upland, and whoever. I'll try to speak louder then. Okay. During the on-site walk, we came on the north side of the property here. We used during the on-site walk, we came on the north side of the property. It always worked.
Now there's no sound.
Always worked.
Oh, that sounds.
Yeah, that'll let that do it. I know.
Oh, there's something.
That'll let that do it. I know.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Any better? No?
Is it his mic or no?
Can you hear me now?
That sounded good.
You're better off not talking.
Feedback's just gonna rotate it and loop right back.
How about now? Maybe I should do the presentation and then delay it.
Or tape it and then we show it.
Some people would
Can you hear me now?
See a link where you can do it on.
Better?
They
Oh,
stream
yeah.
it.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like you're dialing in.
Yeah.
You stream it. So that's what's going.
I was telling Caleb before I forgot my laptop at the museum. So I was like, I could either go back to
Any better now?
but it's dark in there right now.
Sure you can't hear me, huh?
I'm right back. Hold fast.
Any better now?
You don't have a handheld?
Second. I know, that's what.
Handheld? Do we have a handheld mic?
Second.
It's always something.
Handheld? Do we have a handheld mic?
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Well, I think that if it gets approved under an open space subdivision, that designated open space can't be touched.
Okay, but I'm talking about towards West Street more, not around the open space.
I mean,
The river sand extends all the way up to the top of the hill.
what's that?
You mean, I think you mean, sir, before houses are built,
Right,
your concern is that during the time of approval till then,
right,
the developer uses that land to mine whatever minerals are there.
right.
That's your concern.
Exactly.
If I paraphrase
Thank you.
correctly.
That's one of my,
Okay, let's try to get an answer to that. Jim Grappone over there, town engineer, do you have any thoughts on that question, or?
It is possible that the applicant may be applying for an earth excavation as part of the application, so we haven't determined, and I don't think Mark has either, what the cuts and fills will be for the subdivision, but
and my concern is the aquifer in the area that all our wells are on. Any kind of heavy operation like that might cause a lot of problems for us people with the wells. And that's one my concern about the mining operation, all the grading and excavators, heavy equipment going in and out, et cetera, et cetera. Other than that, with the big open space area, the 17 acres, I could go for that. And one of you commissioners brought up the fact that the open space would attract a lot more traffic. I've worked all over this town at a lot of places right next to open spaces. There's never anybody hardly there. It's very quiet, very quiet. And another thing too, the 40-foot buffer, as long as it's enforced, because across the street, the construction company that built on the other side of Churchill, there's less than 20 feet of buffer in places there. And that was kind of disturbing because I stare at the back of this big, huge building. Thank God the guy's a good guy that owns it. He's a real good guy. But that wasn't enforced, and it was supposed to be 40 feet. I have the site plan at my house. And that's basically it. Those are my concerns.
Okay. Any, Steve?
Spoke previously, but you requested that not happen.
No, I didn't request that it not happen. I just said that if they spoke, it's on the record, so. Commissioner Volpe,
I appreciate that you brought up this new concern for us and Jim Grappone for bringing it to our attention as well. If we do go ahead and hypothetically this does get approval before the site plan application, would something like that be brought to our attention? Such as the mining or excavation of those sites?
yeah, it all depends on the grading plan. Mark, did you look into that at all? I don't.
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Lovey again. As far as an earth excavation, we would have to come in for an earth excavation permit on anything over 10,000 yards. Our plan is not to do that. Anything we would be doing would just be grading certain lots around that stripping topsoil and then putting it back on and grading around the houses. So we don't have any plans for earth excavation permit at all. And then the 40-foot buffer zone, the question that he had, we could put a conservation easement on that so no even future buyers could cut that area. And then put signage up like we have in the past at different areas.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You all set, Christina?
I am all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, I just want to touch on the mining piece again.
Well, let's try to hold up a little bit. Let's let Al finish, and then these guys will come up again, and so just make a note, Caleb, if you
Yep.
can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just want to give the public the opportunity to say what they want to say. Al, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, is this buffer zone, is this going to be something that's planted and look nice, or are they just going to leave weeds and stuff up?
Well, I think that's up to the site plan piece of the application. We haven't seen that yet.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Al. Thanks for coming. Next.
Hi, Tammy Balch, 1230 West Street. I just wanted to submit for the record our water test for our well, if I can do that.
Sure.
And that's it, but you guys are welcome to come and sit in my driveway anytime you want. To sit in there, between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon and monitor traffic on your own. You're welcome to it. Our driveway is right next to Churchill, so for me to get out of my driveway some days and at certain times could take me 7 minutes to sit at the bottom of my driveway, to have somebody nice enough to let me out, and in the afternoon, nice enough to let me in to keep the traffic flowing, because they don't want me in or out of my driveway. But If you want to do your own little test, you're welcome to come and sit in my driveway.
You're serving coffee, Jamie, or?
Sure. Let me know when you're coming. I'll put the pot on for you. Thank you.
So,
That's all
thank
I
you
have.
for coming out. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Michael Young. I'm at 8 Brothers Way. I'm actually who you talked to, Mark. I actually sent an email to you, Mr. Hammersley,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you to forward it to the rest of the commission. I didn't know if that serves as getting on the public record or not, so I just wanted
It
to.
does,
ensure
Michael,
that it
yes.
would.
Anything that you send to me, usually I don't get it myself. Usually it goes to everybody else, so.
All right, so I
You make
did
sure that
send
everybody
that,
gets
and I expressed my concerns. I mean, the development is going to happen. We all don't want it to happen, but it is going to happen. I'm more for the open space side of the equation, and what I said in my letter today to you was I think trying to keep the conservation buffer. I recommended 40 feet or more in my letter to you, but keeping a real natural buffer so that, like me with my property behind me, I have about a third of my lot is treed. I don't have any issues with lighting and noise and stuff from my neighbor necessarily. So the concern is with the folks on the Churchill side, I think it's the north side, and keeping if they kept a buffer, whatever the site plan is, an adequate buffer that could not be taken down. And also along my property where those houses are and along the McDonald's houses, that's what I stated in so of the two, I would prefer this proposal that is before you, because I still also don't, and I did not say it in the letter, I don't think the home values are going to be degraded based on us having lot sizes that are twice the sizes of most of these properties. And it's also, if we keep an adequate buffer, it would be a separate neighborhood. So that's just, I wanted to make sure that my comments today that I sent in the email were on record. So
Michael, I'm looking at my email. when did you send that today?
yeah, I did send it today.
I didn't get anything, so if you could just make sure to resend that again.
Okay.
And you can send it to Mary Ellen
All right.
down at the end there, and she'll make sure that it gets into the record and is distributed amongst the group
Okay,
as
I
well.
appreciate
So,
that.
All right?
All right.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Michael? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Hi, I'm Matt Miller. I live at 5 Brothers Way, so I'm the guy that Mr. Lovey didn't talk to. He talked to my neighbor, Michael Young. I will be brief, and I would just say that, I'm really not for or against either option. Option 2 looks to be the better option for the neighborhood, but I do continue to have serious concerns about the safety of my family. I have a 5-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and that traffic study seemed to be very inaccurate, I would say, as far as if you lived in the neighborhood and you saw the amount of traffic now, right? And if you moved into the neighborhood to then think that you're going to have to maybe not be safe, right, because of the extra traffic, and then literally wait 10 minutes, right, to pull onto West Street, that to me, I don't think any of you sitting here would want to have that come to your neighborhood, right? So I hope that you exist to try to make sure that, the safety of us as residents comes first and foremost, right? So I'm not against the build, but I am against the build if it's going to mean that my family isn't safe or that it's going to add a lot of extra time to a neighborhood that we moved into, because it was one way in, one way out. It was a nice, quiet cul-de-sac, right? And so whatever can be done to make that least disruptive. And then I would implore this group of people for you all to really look at whatever traffic studies are done and see if they really are applicable, right? Because it didn't sound like to me, again, living in the neighborhood, that they were all that accurate. So I would just ask, we elect you, right, to protect our safety, our property values. And I do think that you definitely have the power to make sure that if it's built, that, it keeps us all safe. And it also doesn't add a lot of time to our commutes. 10 minutes to pull out your neighborhood does not seem reasonable to me. So
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks, Matt. Matt, can I ask you a question, just as sort of someone from the neighborhood, and just a thought that I had is, do you find various wildlife wandering into your yard at certain points? Do you hear stories about people? And if so, what are we looking at? Like bears, coyotes? What?
So it's really funny. Mr. Hammersley. Actually, we're friends with your sister, so your nephew's been over our house. I think he wants to marry my daughter. But anyways,
I don't know what's, I have 4 sisters, so there's,
we have had a bear come into our yard, and we have a pool where we have a bull that you ride on, which is really funny. My kids got it for Father's Day, so they could laugh at me try to get on this bull. It goes in the pool. It's a flotation device, and it kind of mimics like a mechanical bull. And so that was outside our pool, and there was a bear in our neighbor's yard, and he videoed it coming over and basically getting in a fight with the bull, and the bull definitely won.
Mr. Chair, can we have the video for the record?
We have that video. But yeah, so there's turkeys, though. There's coyotes. We've seen foxes, the bears, deer. Just there's a ton of wildlife. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Can-
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Albanese.
Yeah, I would second that. When I did a site visit, I found 3 separate bear scats. So
Okay.
just on off a path, so it's kind of interesting that there's quite a bit of wildlife being utilized on that
Yeah.
site, obviously.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Good evening. Larry Butlin, I'm 74 Churchill Street. I'm on the south side of Churchill. And basically just wanted to talk about some of the information I thought the gentleman from the traffic engineer was talking about. I think first I wanted to clarify what I heard, at least, was the traffic study that they used was from 2015. It wasn't from 2021. I believe the 2021 is reference to actually their report. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think I also heard the gentleman say that with this new road to the north that'll go on West Pine, and then the other neighborhoods to the north, where there's 96 homes there, that could open up more traffic coming down through. If people want to avoid West Street, they could find their way to move down to the south, come around onto Churchill, and to avoid the extremely long line of traffic coming southbound on West Street. And then I also thought I heard him say that that approximately 50% of the people would use the spur to the north, and 50% would use Churchill. Well, I totally disagree with that, because the majority of traffic would most likely want to go to the south to get to I-84 and not go off to Bristol and to the north. So I think there needs to be some, scrutiny on this traffic study. The developer hired this gentleman and the gentleman's company. So I don't know. I think the last meeting I remember hearing some discussion about an independent traffic study being conducted. Possibly, I don't know if the town would fund such a thing, but given the high degree of concern about traffic safety in and out of our street and on West Street in general, I think it's certainly worthy of consideration. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Larry. And we do have a study that was initiated 3 years ago, I think, by this commission to the town council. They approved it, and it's currently underway. It's being done through the COG, through the CROG, the Capital Region Council of Governments, and also the, what's the one that covers Bristol over there?
Naugatuck Valley?
Right. It's a joint operation. They're studying the whole corridor right now. The traffic patterns and the volumes and that type of stuff. Because we wanted to get out ahead and not have West Street become like Queen Street 2.0.
When is that study going to be ready?
I don't know. I think COVID probably set it back a little bit, but it's currently underway right now. I know a consultant's been hired and they've been working on that, so.
It should be available in April of 2022. I'm looking at their timeline right now, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Just one other thing that just occurred to me, because I work from home. I was outside today with my dog, and I don't know if this was taken into account, but not just the homeowners, but all the trucks that come and go. Contractors, delivery trucks from FedEx, UPS, I saw a UPS truck go up our street. It had to be at least 50 miles per hour. And that's fairly common. So I don't know if the traffic study considers miscellaneous
Yeah.
traffic associated with.
I don't know how you capture that honestly, Larry. I say it all the time. I live on Hobart Street right here. Speed limit is 25. There's school buses that go 50 down that road. So
That's a problem. That's a problem in town.
it is, and it isn't, I guess, misery loves company maybe, but it is a problem as you go down all those connecting roads to, along Pleasant Street down to whether it's North Main or Queen Street, you run into that problem. We had a application on Landing Street, and we heard the same thing from those folks too, and I know people on Woodruff and people on Loper, it is a problem. I don't know how you catch those one-offs in situations like that, and unfortunately or fortunately, who knows, home delivery is picked up dramatically over the last 5 years, so, FedEx trucks, UPS, Amazon, you name it, contractors, they're all going down those roadways, so.
Well, the problem is the hill coming down,
Yeah.
going down Churchill.
I live at the bottom of the hill over here.
Yeah, so that's, and it's a nice straight runway basically for,
The Speedway, yeah.
yeah, and I have one other, if you can indulge me for one other minute. See, there's a couple other folks behind me, but one other minute. I'm a LEP in the state of Connecticut, licensed environmental professional. 282, that's my number for the record. I did hear Mr. Lovely or Mr. Savino talk about the site that has some, I don't know the terminology that was used, but it has some refuse. And I know there was definitely some concern, it was brought up last week, I know, by some of the homeowners. It was touched upon again this evening. I believe I heard there was going to be a phase 1 done. There was going to be some material removed. But I've been at Churchill for 23 years. And I know that there used to be a lot of material up in there because I drive by there a lot. But I could never find anything in the records about, looking at the Connecticut deep records about that being an active site or establishment for the LEP lexicon. So I want to know more about, what's going to be done up there and whether or not, I know there was last week or last meeting, there was discussion about utility poles and potentially transformers, which typically means PCBs, and who knows what else might have been up there. So as far as just a phase 1, a lot of times we can just gloss over a property. And, they look at it and they said, oh, it doesn't look like it's a big deal. Our company does a lot of phase 1s, and
Okay.
unless it's a large facility, it could be glossed over. So I would really like to know, I don't know how that would be relayed to the public, to the residents and neighbors of Churchill. But, what exactly is going to be done up there? And is there going to be any soil tests going to be conducted as well?
Okay. We'll have the applicant elaborate on those pieces of what was said when they spoke, after everyone else gets a chance to talk.
They have to come up after the public. So the public talks, then they come up to answer your question.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much.
Thanks, Larry. Have a great night.
Hello, Amy Cooper, 43 Brothers Way. I'm just going to bring one more in for safety with the increased traffic. One thing no one's really discussed yet is how narrow and how steep the beginning of Churchill is. When it's winter and there's so much snow, I don't see how you're going to fit buses in with all these extra cars coming in and out. If I see a truck coming down the hill, I wait at the bottom for it to come through because it's not going to be wide enough for cars to come in. Now you're going to start adding more cars waiting to pull out. These trucks can't even pull into the street then. It's going to be way too narrow when there's snow on the ground, and you can't widen that road anymore, or else we're going to be high-fiving Al when we come home because his house is already that close to the road. And you can't even go the other way because then you're going to go into the construction company. That road's pretty much maxed out for how wide it's going to be. And I think that's something that we really need to consider You know, it's nice out now, but it's not always like that. And I've almost been run off the road a couple times just by my neighbors trying to pull in and out of there when there's snow. So I think that's something that we really need to consider. And it's like, you know, it's a 50% car increase coming in and out of there now. And it's already not safe as it is sometimes with school buses and bigger trucks coming in, and then adding construction vehicles coming in for how many years to do the work here. So that's one of my concerns, is just, you know, safety. I think we're all very concerned about safety.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
It was something I noticed when I went out there was how it seemed to be more narrow at the top than it is at the bottom. And I think there's a report that speaks to that as well. Yeah.
Jerry Butlin, 74 Churchill Street. So I've lived in there for 23 years. And so we're right at the bottom of that bit of hill. So if it's particularly slippery on the hill, I've actually got to go left out of my driveway and kind of take a running start to get up the hill. And then if I'm in the middle of doing that and a truck is, you know, or the school bus coming down the other way. So again, safety. And regarding safety, I appreciate, Mr. Hammersley, that you brought up, you know, all the animals in the neighborhood, because I think another issue too is impact to their habitat, also based on, and also going back to what Al said, impact potentially to the wells, that, you know, when you have 33 plus homes, you're looking at an average of about 9 applications of pesticides a year to a suburban home. So, you know, over 3,000 pounds of pesticides a year, or 1.5 tons. And we have an established habitat in that area that includes migratory birds, right? So they do stop off there. Blue herons, because you've got the pond, the wetlands. Hawks, wild turkeys, tree frogs, rabbits, coyotes, deer, bear, bobcat, fox, and that long-eared bat, which does summer roost in the trees on the property. So, you know, the pollution and the environmental impact to the wells and to the established habitat that these animals have enjoyed for the 23 years I've been there and beyond, since that hasn't been developed. And just wanted to leave you with a thought here, which is actually Mr. Lovely's own words from the Record Journal. This was from August of 2017, and it was in reference to the larger development at, Northridge? But in referencing, like further down where we are, the quote from the article is, while there are some larger properties off West Street that could be developed, Lovely said the power lines limit how many homes can fit on the parcels. He expects developments in the future to be around 12 homes per subdivision. And here we are, 30 plus. So, and everybody's issues are related to the increase on infrastructure and the safety around those homes and the number of cars associated with them. So, little food for thought.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Zabrowski, and I live at 96 Brothers Way. Story time. In 2018, around Thanksgiving, my daughter was coming home from college. She got off the exit at 31, proceeded towards Curtis Street. At the light, like we've always told her, she put on the left blinker. That's about 100 yards in front of Churchill to get into her neighborhood. At Churchill, she was waiting to turn left while cars are speeding down. She looks in the rearview mirror and she sees a car coming up to her very fast. And before she could do anything, the car slammed her. It pushed her car 360 degrees to the other lane in the corner of Churchill and West Street, facing the opposite direction. This is a Toyota Camry. By the grace of God, there was nobody coming at that moment when she got hit, that the car was able to go to the other side and she was not hit. So I can speak to you today that I'm not planning a funeral other than talking about the safety of that area. My daughter had minor injuries that day, but to this day, she has anxiety and she's scared to go on there, like many of us do, just going basically home every day. She panics and she fears, but she's fine. Life goes on. If you're going to connect the streets, that won't take away the traffic, as someone had mentioned before. All that excessive speeding will go into our neighborhoods. They will find their way through. And that's a concern for people that have kids that are walking down the street, walking with them during those high traffic times, walking your pets, potentially hitting the residents that live there. I would think that there'd be another option. As someone had mentioned before, you can't maybe take away the changes of West Street because I understand that's a state road. Maybe putting more lights in there because I don't know how much we can control the traffic of the speeding. But I don't know if any of you are going to be coming to somebody's funeral if somebody gets hit in our neighborhood or anywhere in that area. There's plenty of accidents. My daughter just made it lucky that day from not somebody coming down the opposite way. So I just want to emphasize that there needs to be a comparable solution. I like the buffer idea. We understand that there's houses that are coming, but we need to have the safety of current children, families that come in, future children that are driving around in their bikes that will drive cars. I live in not the non-traffic area, but I've got kids that are going to get their license that will come in that area. So you're adding more cars. It's a recipe for disaster unless we take this seriously. And we're here seriously because it's a potential disaster to make things worse. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm glad that things didn't turn out more tragically there, but we have had a number of accidents up there, as you probably know, that are more serious. And
Certainly, yes.
as I said, we've tried to do our best as a group to address any future problems that may be caused up there. It's just things take time a little bit, I think, and so. But I hear what you're saying. I appreciate you coming out tonight.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Patterson. I spoke at the last meeting, and I won't repeat any of it, I promise. But since that meeting, I won't say I've become an expert, but I certainly have.
John, could you give us your address just so we have?
Yeah,
it
I'm
for the
sorry,
record?
150 Churchill Street.
Okay, thank you.
It's with one T, Paterson. I certainly haven't become an expert, but I have spent some time in the policies and the provisions of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and in particular, the open space preservation subdivision and just the overall zoning regulations. And I find that a lot of the clauses that are in the documentation, at least from my perspective, are somewhat subjective and a little bit vague. I find the term substantial is used in a lot of the clauses, which is kind of interesting. And you may have picked up on it a little bit tonight. Our neighborhood is starting to divide, unfortunately. Regardless of which proposal goes through, there's going to be people that are upset about it from one side or the other, whether Churchill Street gets opened up or whether the egress is directly across from my house and Matt Miller's house. It's unfortunate, but I guess it is what it is. But I wanted to reference a couple of the provisions in the documents. As I mentioned, substantially accomplished seems to be kind of the term that we hear a little bit. And under section 3-07.3, and this is in the open space portion of the document where it talks about review standards under procedure. And one of the statements that's made is, as it relates to the commission doing their review, and that the development will not adversely affect existing or potential development of neighborhood or neighboring properties. So I find that an interesting statement. And at some point, regardless of which way this goes, I think we would like to hear you know, how you folks felt about that adversely affecting, because I agree with Mo. If I can get 900 grand for my house on a full acre, and Mr. Lovely can get 900 grand on a half an acre, I'm going to be doing loop-de-loops, and I may not come back to any of these meetings again. I also, on 3-0704, where it talks about standards and conditions, in that the open space preservation subdivision shall conform to the following minimum standards unless otherwise noted. And at the last meeting, Mr. Hamley, you made a comment, and it caused me to go back in and look at the documents, and there's three statements in the document, and you commented here specific to section B, which is area of subdivision, and you said to Mr. Seb something to the nature of that he must be hanging his hat on number 1 because numbers 2 and 3 don't seem to conform. In the paragraph, you folks are probably familiar with it, but so that the audience knows what I'm talking about. Area of subdivision. While there is no minimum lot size for open space preservation subdivision, the land must be in a single tract or a number of contiguous tracts under one ownership, or consolidated into a single tract by a number of different owners by means of a binding agreement, which will assure the uniform treatment of an overall open space preservation subdivision development for the entire tract from the time of application and continuing thereforth, except that the acreage may be less than specified for each respective zone if one or more of the following criteria are met. And number 1 that you referred to was, in the opinion of the commission, the purposes set forth in section 3-07.2 can better be served than by a conventional subdivision. So at some point, if we do go this route, again, we would like clarification on what this commission felt better served meant, because Mr. Seb actually did admit that numbers 2 and 3 don't apply because the application covers land adjoining and which can be integrated with another open space preservation subdivision that has been approved under this section, or the open space proposed is contiguous to existing open space land outside the area covered by the application and is suitable for the open space purposes specified in section 6. And he did admit that the field in whatever Fish and Game is not contiguous. So it is there, and I don't know how far away it is. So again, at some point, I think the commission would be good to kind of tell us really what they would be thinking if they make a decision that the proposal meets all those requirements. And then my last comment talks about open space, where it talks about the open space preservation subdivision development shall result in reservation of undeveloped land with suitable access. The commission shall have the right to determine the location, dimensions, and numbers of rights of way to set open space for pedestrian and or vehicle access. And I'm not going to go into all the traffic stuff, you've heard it all, but based on that statement, it would appear that you folks have the ability to let Mr. Lovely know whether either of these two proposals will work based on what you're hearing from this group and the traffic studies that you do the work on. Listen, I think everyone understands that he's got a right if he purchases the property to build. We understand that, but that doesn't mean that he has to completely disrupt another neighborhood, use a West Street exit. So thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. You know, I want to talk about the piece that you brought up about the subdivision. So one of the things that occurred between we last met and tonight is that I asked our town staff to provide me with a map of the current open space properties that we have in town to specifically see if there was something contiguous or adjacent to where this proposed development is. There's a small sliver. There's a little piece of land that sits between this piece of property and where this sliver is. But there is something there. And, you know, one of the reasons why I'm asking about wildlife tonight is because one of my concerns is making sure that we maintain the wildlife corridors in our town and build upon them as best as we can. So when I look at this plan, you know, one of the things that I see as a positive is that it may provide some access along that corridor on the, if I'm looking at it correctly, on the west side of the development, because if you look at that, let's take it out, huh? If you look at that piece up in the upper right-hand corner there, yeah, go up. Yeah, right there is actually open space that's reserved by the town. Right here, right in this area. So there's a tract of land right up here. Like I said, it's a small sliver that's a rectangular in shape. That is a reserved open space. So again, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility to try to eventually join these properties together to give wildlife an opportunity to walk along there, because, you know, as we keep developing along our town, one of the bad things that seems to be happening is that wildlife is looking for a place to roam. And, you know, too often it's not their fault. They end up in the backyards of residents, and, you know, that's a safety concern as well. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up again, and we'll certainly have the applicant speak to that when they come up.
Thank you.
All right? Thanks for coming out.
Good evening, Commissioners. Craig Zoll, 350 Churchill. I spoke last time. I just want to give some specificity to some of the things that were said tonight. So at the intersection of Churchill and West Street, in the last 6 years, there's been over 200 accidents in that half mile on either side going north or south. Of the 200 accidents that have happened, 34 of them have been attributed to the Churchill West Street intersection. Of the 34, 9 are specifically attributed to Churchill number 2 or the hashtag number 2. You have to look at both sets of data. I conversed with Yukon crash data to pull out those numbers. I sent a presentation to everybody on this board earlier tonight. It was listed on the website. You're welcome to peruse it. It has all of that data footnoted. It also has data from every one of those 34 accidents listed in the back, and the 9 accidents and all the data associated with it. In addition to that, of the 200 accidents that happened a half mile up or down, north or south on 229, there have been 600 accidents on the 229 corridor between 84 and Route 6. So a third of those accidents have happened within a mile of Churchill. That's the first thing. The second thing is, while I agree this would be the better option for me also, I live down on the middle part of Churchill, across the street from Mario, that if you look, I get my laser pointer, but my own laser pointer. If you look here, this slope here, and it cuts through this property, goes from 230 feet to 270 feet in roughly 170 feet of land. That's pretty steep to put a house on. Mark, you're going to lose some houses there, but you're also going to lose some houses here and houses here, because those are where there are easements for Eversource. They take a pretty good chunk of both of those corner lot properties there. In addition to that, this commission, not these people, but the Zoning and Planning Commission in 2012 brought an action against the homeowners who owned 1268 Churchill Street for debris, which was in this area here, where the lawyer said, we will remove all of the telephone poles and debris from the property. And the zoning commission said, okay, we'll give you a pass, but you must remove all of that material. That material is still there today. One last thing that I'd like to bring up for one last specificity is this wetlands area that you see here goes all the way up into West Pines area and all the way down to the 8 Mile River. It also feeds Florian Pond with some tributaries. There is an easement down here on one of the properties by the town for water retention, water runoff, flood control, and some other things that may be impacted by this subdivision that should be taken into account during these actions. Last thing is ingress. So there is a road here, right at the top here. It's a service road. As I understand it, when you did your walkthrough, you walked down that service road. That service road already has a entranceway and exit onto West Street. So if Mark is going to develop the property, he could develop using that service road if he's going to use this area up here for phase 3 as an ingress point into the neighborhood and not even have to touch the Churchill neighborhood at all by using this service road. He could also use this service road for construction equipment coming up and down the road. Any questions?
Any questions for Craig?
I have comment.
Commissioner Volpe?
I would like to say that this is some of the most impressive data collection that we've received as a body up here.
Thank you.
I say that not even to be facetious. It's quite compelling. It's a wonderful data. It shows that you're a concerned citizen, and I really appreciate it because I don't know everything. You've elected me to hear you out, but these are the things I'd like to hear. You know, this data as it's presented is helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have one more data point for you.
Yes,
so
Queen.
the Naugatuck Valley and Central Connecticut COGS are both doing studies on 229. They've both identified the intersection of Churchill and West Street as a high incident and accident zone. And there are suggestions on how to do remediation of it. However, those remediations, as you stated, won't be available until April of 2022. Their preliminary report will be available at the end of September 2021, however.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
No,
You all
nothing.
set, Christina? Anyone else? Thanks, Craig, for coming out
My
tonight.
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak in opposition to this application?
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I've lived in this town for over 20 years. If you know where Barbara Lane is, it's behind JFK. Had a situation over the last decade that was very similar to yours. I just want to say that I've seen what I have nothing against your company, Mr. Lovely. I don't know you. I know nothing about you, but this town has to decide if it wants to remain a town or if it wants to be a city. I hear all around from people, especially people that have, lived most of their life here. They want this overcrowding to stop. You guys are shoving houses in wherever you can fit them. They're cookie cutter houses. You are destroying wildlife everywhere. I used to have bobcats, deer, fox, skunks, you name it. So, Mr. Lovely, I have nothing against you, but stop destroying the town.
Thanks, Mr. Cooper. Anyone else like to speak on this application at this time? Mark, Sev, we have some questions. We could start with the traffic counts and just talk about where the actual counts were taken from and then what you did to achieve the counts that you presented in your report.
Yeah, I apologize. I understand the nature of my presentation can be a little confusing when I'm just throwing numbers at you. So I will go over it. The report we submitted was submitted August 25th, 2021. The numbers that we have based our background traffic volumes off of are based off of a traffic volume count conducted by the Connecticut Department of Transportation during 2015. The reason for this is the 2015 count reflects the highest traffic volumes at that station from 2020 to 2009. We do have traffic volumes from 2020, but even the Condat traffic volumes clearly state these volumes were taken during or counted during a pandemic. So they do not like us by practice using traffic volumes that were conducted during a pandemic because typically they reflect lower traffic volumes. So we chose the 2015 traffic volumes because they show the worst case scenario. Those are the highest traffic volumes, and that information is available to the public. If you search Condat traffic volumes, they're very simple to find. but we do always analyze the worst case scenario. So we chose the 2015 traffic volumes, analyzed data back to 2009, which found an increase of traffic per year of about 0.8%. We upped it to 1% per year, and our background traffic volumes are based on the 2015 traffic volumes, increased 1% per year to the 2022 design year, if that. And as far as the directional distribution, those are found as well using the conduct counts, and basically analyzing in which direction traffic goes based off of their counts. It is, as you said, a rough estimate because their counts are conducted at certain stations. So information is only what we have available to us. But 50-50 was our best educated guess at what the distribution is. I hope that does clear things up. But we do always analyze worst case scenario as far as traffic volume goes, and that is available to the public.
Okay. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say trust but verify, so I'm going to use our third-party peer reviewer sitting in the back there, Jim Grappone, PE, to just answer a question about whether, in his opinion, that's standard practice in the business to do what was done in the case of this traffic study.
I agree with what the engineer stated from a pandemic standpoint, and they used the 2015 and interpolated it 1% per year. So it'd be interesting to get the existing data from the CROG study and just see how that compares with the existing.
Okay, thanks, Jim. The other questions I have is one is on environmental concern, utility bowls and PCBs, and then an overall questions on a couple sections of our regulations that were brought up by me last time that I just wanted you to clarify what your position on those are. So why don't you start with the environmental concerns?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Mark Lovey again. On the environmental concerns, I've only been involved with this property since March when I walked the property with the seller's attorney to view the property. Only thing that I found out there was piles of telephone poles that they used for a fence at that time. I didn't see any evidence of any transformers or anything out there. They did have 2 old trucks that were parked there that they actually removed from the property, and they did clean up the front part of the property, which is 1268, where we're not purchasing right now. But I brought in, I actually did talk to Jeff Quirk about the best way to get rid of those telephone poles, and he said use a remediation company that would be getting rid of them with the correct paperwork and everything like that. Okay. And that's what we have done. I've had them up on the site. They walked the site. They have a facility to take it to. And then, like I say, we will do a phase 1. I have to do a phase 1, not only for myself, but for you guys when we actually turn a road over. And the other thing is, for me to get financing from a bank, I have to have a clean site. So if there's an issue with it after we do the phase 1, we have to go to a phase 2. We'll definitely do it because there would be some different negotiation with the seller on that aspect if there was an environmental problem. But we always look at protecting ourselves, so that's why we do a phase 1, and we would end up going into a phase 2 if needed.
Okay, and just on the utility piece, the service road out there, that's not part of this property, correct? That's owned or maintained by somebody else?
It is. That's the Bagnell piece of property. And to get some of the telephone poles out, I did ask him if we could take some from there, and I talked to Frank about that, and he said he would be open to that.
So the reason I'm asking, Mark, is because somebody suggested that maybe you use that as a means of egress in and out of this development or this area if you were to develop it. That's not really an option at this point because you don't own it.
It's not an option because we don't own it right now.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. And then there was another question that was brought up by Mr. Patterson about the open space contiguous under 3-07.4B. Again, I brought this up at the last meeting, and Sev, I think, tried to answer it, maybe thought about it a little bit. He seemed a little bit more prepared tonight relative to it because you mentioned the game club property back there. You know, as I said, there is a piece up in the north west corner there that is a small sliver that's preserved open space.
That is.
But why don't you talk to those requirements, the
Yes,
3
definitely.
requirements there?
Yeah, the 17 acres that we have, and actually part of the other, if with this open space subdivision, will be contiguous to that north parcel up there that will go into that, which will go into the Fish and Game Club, which goes into other open space from subdivisions out behind that that's contiguous to the Forestville Fish and Game. Now, if we were to do a standard subdivision here without this type of open space, there would be no contiguous to that parcel. That would be blocked off by 4 lots that would be over in that area.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
One other thing, I think Commissioner Coles had a question on the earth excavation. There was a request or an application from Tilcon back about in the late 80s to be able to do a earth excavation permit on this property, which the Planning and Zoning Commission of Sulington denied that application. Our plans are not to come in for any earth excavation on this property to remove fill from the property.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
The other thing, I think there was a question last time too that we forgot to mention. Sev did check the endangered species database at the state, and there is no endangered species on the property itself.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant from members of the commission? Commissioner Volpe.
I actually had a question about the traffic study report, but we were like running along there.
No problem.
My question is that, like, did we take accidents into account in the report that you presented to us for this evening? Or maybe that's not typical. Again, I'm just wondering because I also feel compelled. I have a family member who was driving a flatbed who also got hit near this area about 3 years ago. It flipped. He was trapped. It's a very traumatic story, and I feel your pain. So I'm concerned about that as well. I would love to see some sort of accident analysis, and I don't know if I saw that in this report. So if you could review that for us or talk to me about it, just so I feel better. Thank you, Mark. So sorry.
No problem.
One for Mark.
Hold on 1 second.
Actually, myself owning the property down on West Street, I've had to have somebody from the DOT from when we did that looking at those traffic lights down there, because one of the problems is those traffic lights are not in sync from Curtis Street to where the commercial development is. So that's what's backing that up. So unfortunately, he retired. So I'm working on trying to get to somebody else at the state, because that is one of the biggest problems in that area for that traffic backing up on West Street like it does.
If I remember correctly, there's 2 traffic lights that sit at the end of Curtis and at the end of, there's another road there, but they're
The
very
my
close.
development that I did with the medical office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're about a half mile away from the Churchill entrance on West Street, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically the one over near Dunkin' Donuts in there. Those aren't timed properly. The state needs to adjust those to time those
Get
differently.
it yellow, you're gonna blow. You're trying to blow it.
Yeah.
But we don't blow it through yellow.
Yeah,
Not me personally, on the record.
that's one of the biggest problems with that West Street corridor is that backing up. And we've asked, because I have the buildings down there, to try and do something, because it's just it's crazy how fast the light. Some of the other ones change and the other ones don't. That's the problem.
Okay. Commissioner Santiago.
So, Mark, there's just one thing that I wanted to ask, because it's been, I don't understand why you would do it. So, as you know, if you came here for the straight subdivision thing, and we're within regulation, we're duty bound to say yes to that, as you know.
Yes.
Per
we
our
are.
regulations,
Yes.
which people don't really understand. If somebody comes in, owns a piece of property, it's zoned residential, they come in regulation-wise, we have very little say-so, we must obligation say yes. If we don't, you could sue the town and you could sue us personally,
Yes.
right?
Fortunately, we could.
Right? And so you're giving us, though, the option of a special permit. And then with a special permit, we have more leeway, as you said, Mr. Chair, to change some things. We have more leeway to go back and forth on that.
Yes.
And normally when we have those choices, you get open space and there's a lot more houses. And we really have to weigh the trade-off.
Yes.
Here, the houses are basically a wash. It's not like it's 33 and 60 as we normally are faced.
100% correct.
You know, that sort of thing. And we get open space, and then we got to talk about density, and we have all those discussions, regardless of what it is.
Yes.
This isn't that. So you're getting the same number of houses, and we get a lot more open space. So I guess my question to you is, why go through all this? Why even offer it?
You know, it's funny because when I bought this property, I told the seller's agent that I wasn't going to come in for an open space subdivision because then I didn't have to come to a public hearing. We didn't have to go through all this.
That's right.
But I felt, you know, the last 5 developments I've done in town, and a lot of people don't know this, we've saved over 200 acres of open space doing it with this type of application.
Right.
And that's basically the reason for doing this, is to try and save more open space for a habitat.
Right. Because really the options that we have, as you know, for open spaces, somebody buys it and doesn't develop it.
Yep.
The town uses taxpayer money to buy it and doesn't develop it.
Yep.
Or with our regulation that this body over time has developed either an open space subdivision or those arch cluster
Exactly.
housing things or
Yep.
other that within the confines of a development, the town gets, an open space is kind of a broad term. It gets undeveloped land.
Yes.
Because I think we use open space kind of freely, and there's different definitions of it, but it's undevelopable land.
Exactly.
That's what you have.
Yep.
So why?
I guess I glut for punishment.
Like, you didn't have to go through this.
No, I didn't have to.
You could have said subdivision, there's no public hearing, nobody has to question your integrity or anything else.
Yep.
And we're duty bound to say yes to that.
Yep.
Assuming you're within regulation.
Exactly. Yep. I did it just to save the extra open space. I felt that 17 acres instead of 3.75 was a better for the town.
Okay.
Just like the other subdivisions, I did the same thing I've done in the last 5, which, like I say, saved 200 acres of open
Yeah,
space
right.
instead of which probably would have been somewhere around less than 30.
Right.
So.
Okay.
All set, Peter?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Volpe for a second time.
Yep, for a second time. I just, I love all that, and I love that there's open space that you have preserved with your developments, but it has been mentioned tonight that there's an easement from Eversource on this property, which makes it difficult as well. So it's to your benefit to provide this open space within this subdivision. Is that correct? Or
Not really, because if you look, our property line ends, there's only a couple lots up on the upper north side that abuts up against the easement. We're not even really into the easement other than about 3 or 4 lots on this plan. That easement is north of our property.
Okay.
We're actually planning on keeping all those trees in the back of those homes too, so it doesn't open up that corridor through there.
I just think, while I appreciate it, I think that to just say that it's purely out of the kindness of your heart when there is some strategy to it, we should also mention that as well. There is a strategy here to fit as many homes or less homes as possible. I want that in consideration of everyone here, because it's not simply getting open space that can be walked through. It's really just going to be for the habitat factor. Is that correct?
Well, no, when you walk up on the northern upper or north or west of the open space or the wetlands over in that area, that land is gorgeous through there. There are paths there that can be walked with the neighbors and stuff like that and get out to the power lines. So it actually, I don't know if you walked it or not, but it is gorgeous through there, and just not to develop that and keep that natural, I think, is a benefit.
I have, because there's a historic path that goes to the little schoolhouse back there that who knows how old that is, but I guess I appreciate you just answering me in that way, because those things matter. I want to hear that if we're getting this land, that not me, but maybe my daughter or her daughter eventually, it'll be there. It's land that is not just there because it favored the development the way that it's set
Exactly.
up.
Yes.
I want to hear that we can use it, or that it's positive in those senses. So elaborating on that, thank you.
And what's nice about this is you have 17 acres of open space, of which 4 is only wetlands, which is nice about that. So we're getting a lot of uplands on this one, where a lot of times you don't get that.
That's it from me, Mr. Chair, for the second time.
Thank you, Commissioner Volpe. Commissioner Albanese.
Yeah, let's take what Christina, Miss Volpe said, Commissioner Volpe, and turn it into a different situation. If you went with the conventional design, what kind of impacts would we have had for the wetlands and for the upland forests and the upland areas in that portion of the property? And you would have extended the road continuously through and then put in another access road to build homes back there, correct?
Exactly, 100% right. The road, Churchill would extend through to the west, all the way through the other Churchill, and then that upper westerly portion would be 4 single-family lots instead of open
Exactly,
space.
right, with potential wetland impacts.
Exactly, we would be going in for wetlands for a buffer
we're
zone.
looking at a design that is avoiding wetland impacts at this point. We don't know because you haven't come before us or the Conservation Commission or the PZ for the actual site plan, subdivision application. And we're preserving uplands and wetlands.
100%
So,
correct.
okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to give a different perspective that we're looking at this, there's a 17 acres, a big chunk of open space, and yet we're preserving a good amount of this property, but yet if it went to the conventional, there might have been more impacts to the natural habitat and more impacts to, habitat for wildlife and more impacts to the wetlands as well. So it's kind of a win-win, I think,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Albanese. Any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, have all staff questions been responded to? I get a nodding in the affirmative from both Mr. Grappone and Ms. Edwards. So is there any reason to keep this public hearing open at this time?
Mr. Chair, I do
Commissioner
question.
Volpe, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. But we have talked about CROG a lot, or Naugatuck Valley CROG and the September 29th meeting. I may ask that we wait until some of that information at the September 29th meeting is made available so that we can just see more of the impact that is had on the 229 corridor as a whole in our town, that southern portion of the corridor. That would be my only ask, but I'm open to hearing the opinions of my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Anyone want to respond?
I guess I appreciate
Commissioner
that, and
Santago,
it's
go ahead.
fair. I don't know if it would change the outcome, simply because it's a subdivision reg. And with a subdivision reg, I hate to say it, but on a straight subdivision reg, that has some impact, but it really, I hate to say it, kind of doesn't. In regards to, I think it would have to do, if we would talk site plan maybe, on the question, which we're going to talk anyways in another public hearing.
Yeah.
So at that time, we usually have a couple bites at the apple at site plan anyway.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we will at this one. But in regards to the question that we have this evening, do we want conventional or open space? I don't know necessarily if that question is pertinent to this decision. I think.
Let me add to what Commissioner Santago said, and Commissioner Volpe, is that, when we were presented with the numbers and we asked for an explanation and we were provided with that explanation, my question to Mr. Grappone was to sort of address that, right?
Yeah.
That if the industry accepted practice is to add a certain percentage, and they actually went above that certain percentage, rounding it up to 1% for every year amortized over since 2015 or 16, then I think that the outcome of the West Street corridor study, which will only be a draft form, and we don't know what it's going to say, and to delay I'm not sure that we're going to find much more information that's going to be off what we were presented with already.
I don't disagree. That's why I'm interested in hearing your opinions, because either way, as you said, we'll get to see that when we do discuss the site plan.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted your opinion on how, because I know what that's looking at. It's looking at walkability, pedestrian access, biking. There's a lot more factors than what we're just looking at tonight. So my historian mind, right, wants to see and analyze all of those different factors into rationalizing what this will look like eventually from a livability perspective.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't disagree. So thank you for taking that moment.
Anytime, Christina, always happy to discourse.
Just chat it out. We got to chat some things out, Thank
Any other commissioner have any thoughts on closing the public hearing at this time? See none, we'll close the public hearing on that. Moving on to item 7C, Carol and Gilman Albert, or Albert, petition to change the zone district boundary from I-1 to R-2025, property located at 144 Pine Street. This is zone change 572. Is the applicant here?
Oh, somebody just got to
Mr.
hit the
Chair?
computer.
I'm back.
Commissioner Gork, oh, I'm
Been a
sorry,
while, but I'm
yes,
back.
Thank you, Jeff. So Commissioner Gork has moved back into his seat. Thank you for your service. Teresa, I'm sure you'll be called upon sometime in the near
Yes, it
future to do that again. So Mrs. Albert or Mrs. Albert?
Albert.
Albert?
Carol Albert. I live at 631 West Center Street, but my husband and I own 144 Pine Street. And we'd like it to be rezoned to a residential area because we believe it's the highest and best use
Excuse
for
me,
that property.
sir?
Oh dear.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh dear.
Go ahead,
We
Carol.
believe
Sorry.
it's the highest and best use for that property. The pool of interested buyers, right now we have it up for sale, is so much larger when it's a residential property. So,
So Mrs. Albert, one of the things that struck me when I went out there and looked at it was that it's very small.
yeah,
It's a little over, I think the map read 0.69 acres. So-
0.69.
Yeah, so a little bit over a half acre. There's one house that's sitting on there right now, chain link fence across the driveway, the whole thing. It looked like, I saw some people that looked like they were out there to cut trees or maybe taking a lunch break, I don't know. I'm just curious, what is the intent here? I mean, why are we changing this? Why should we change it? What are you looking to put there?
Oh, we're not looking to put anything else there. We'd probably apply for a demo permit at some time, take that house down because it's really not in good shape. And then if somebody wants to buy it and put up a house, you know, it's more liable that they would do
Okay.
that than if it's a commercial property.
And Mary Ellen or Jim, is this a non-conforming use right now? Is that what that residence is? So it's grandfathered in under that. So at one point it was a residentially zoned and then it got changed over to an
Yes.
I zone for some reason. I
We
see
don't
Mr.
know why.
Perillo was in the audience earlier. Maybe he can shed some light on that change, but Lou Perillo is in the back row. He's our economic development guy, so. But, okay. Anything else to add? Any other questions from members of the commission of Mrs. Albert?
I think Mr. Chair, I think the surrounding neighborhood's residential, is it not?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
this
At
is-
least on 3 sides.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So this is because usually you don't like losing industrial. It's like a thing. Like you don't lose industrial, at least certain big plots of it. But this seems like it's just a dot in the middle of residential, and I don't know how big you're going to get on there. I mean, normally, I'm welcome to have more understanding of that, but it's like you say, it's like half acre land there.
I think Lou might be able to shed some light on that at some point,
So, I don't know
but
what
before
what the
we
deal
give the
is.
floor to him, let's finish up with Mrs. Albert and see if there's any other questions for her. I don't see any, Mrs. Albert, thank you, and stick around. Someone might raise a question in the next couple of minutes, so.
Thank you.
She trying to change.
Do we have anybody here who's here to testify in favor of this application? Come on up. Okay, again, just name, rank, serial number, firstborn's name,
Hi, my name's Steve Powell. That property is in my backyard. I'm connected to it. It is a residential area, except right next to them. My only concern would be that it was just a single residence that went in there, and it wasn't, a duplex, which doesn't really fit in the neighborhood. So if it was a single family type thing, I would support it.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair?
Gork has a
Just
question
a quick
for you.
question. Your backyard, I'm looking at the GIS now. The other side is, what's on that property on the north of the house that abuts your backyard? It's industrial zoned as well, but is there commercial back there or is it residential?
They have a small cabinet shop. It's a one-man operation, makes cabinets. I don't even know that they're there. It's quiet all the time. They keep the door shut and.
How do they get in and out of, where's the,
So the entrance is just past their property. When you go by the driveway for their residence, straight through, there's a gate, and that
Okay.
enters the property back there.
Right.
Both of those are behind my house.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned because then you're just blocking off. I think maybe the small parcel was made I-1, so it made it contiguous so you could access industrial to industrial. So I was just nervous that if there's not a way to get into the back industrial property, they're just isolating the industrial, so.
Yeah, they have their own entrance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions for Steve? Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Anyone else here to testify in favor of this application? Seeing none, anyone to testify in opposition to the application? Lou Perillo, Do you have any light you can shed on this property with the history of it, how it, and why it's
How to
a
get there?
house in an industrial zone at all, or?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Lou Perillo, Southington Economic Development Coordinator or Director. I'm sorry I'm not prepared to speak on this particular parcel, but as Commissioner Santiago said, we really don't normally like to get rid of industrial. This might be an exception. However, I would caution the commission that once you change it to residential, any residential could go in there. It's very difficult to stipulate that it can't be affordable housing. The other thing I would caution you is if someone does tear it down, puts up a nice single-family residence, and something happens with the adjacent industrial parcel, you're going to have people coming up saying, I'm against this use, which is in a conforming area currently. So we've had issues with that in the past as well, but I'll be glad to take a look at it. And like I said, I'm not against it per se at all. I just don't have enough knowledge on this particular aspect. Those are my two cautionary items for you this evening.
Thanks, Lou. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I just thought I'd put your brain power to use here,
We
so.
appreciate Lou.
Any other questions for members of the commission? I think in light of Lou's commitment to look at the property a little bit historically, maybe if you could just give us a memo even, Lou, I don't want you to have to come up here again in 2 weeks, but if we just keep this open just to get that piece of information, does anyone object to that?
I would agree, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Makes sense.
okay, so we'll keep that public hearing open. Ms. Aber, what we're doing is we're just trying to get a historical context of that piece of property. And we're back again in 2 weeks, so, we'll have a presentation at that time. I can't close the public hearing because then that can't become part of the record. So, and moving on to item 7D, Matotega 9-lot subdivision application, property located 181 West Queen Street, property owned by Southington Land Associates in an I-1 zone. This is S1328. I believe we're still waiting for staff to review responses that were provided recently. And I believe that there's a request to table this item until our next meeting. Is that true, Sev? Okay. So is there any objection to tabling this item? No?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to the business meeting. Item 8A, Chris Kazanasis, or something like that, care of EBI Consulting, I apologize. Site plan application to construct a 7-Eleven convenience store building with gas station pumps and canopy. Underground fuel storage tank are proposed to facilitate the gasoline sales operation on site. The existing pharmacy building will be demolished to make room for the proposed development. Property located at 500 Queen Street, owned by RAP Properties LLC in a B zone. Special permit application number 1825. This was tabled from our last meeting on August 17th. And before the applicant starts, I want to extend again my gratitude for your willingness to forego your presentation at our last meeting, which was running rather late. And the floor is yours, gentlemen. So, and lady, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I use the laptop to?
Oh, absolutely.
You can. If you could just give us your name and your affiliation to the application, that would be great. So start with that.
My name is Mark Grocki, project manager with VHB. Our offices are located at 100 Great Meadow Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna load up our PDF here.
Hey, Mark, not to brag, but Southington's better than Weathersfield. Why don't you locate your business here? Lou will hit you on the way out. I set it up for you, Lou, so.
I'm not sure I get paid enough for those
You have no
decisions.
shame.
Yeah, there you go.
No offense to my people from Weathersfield.
Yeah,
but
nice. We'll start at
my
the-
daughter's one of them, by the way, so.
Lord,
Hard knock life. Whatever you gotta do.
Could you get the lights? Would it be,
Right over your right shoulder there.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Either is.
Oh.
Well, leave the back ones on.
Maybe just one of
Leave the
them,
back
on,
ones
please.
on.
Yeah, the front light.
There you
There we
go.
go.
There you go.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening again. My name is Mark Grocki, project manager with VHB. Here on behalf of 7-Eleven and their development team. I have with me Dorothy Fleischman from 7-Eleven and Jason Adams, our traffic expert from McMahon Associates. We're here to seek site plan approval for the proposed 7-Eleven development at 500 Queen Street. We are also seeking for the record seeking a waiver of zoning regulation 9-03, specifically for section 9-03.17. It has to do with level of service for traffic analysis, and we'll get into that just a little bit later. And for the record, this is also for a Connecticut General Statute 14-321 for site location approval, which puts the onus of the location approval onto the local municipality. So I just wanted to note that for record. So to go through the site briefly, see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Again, 500 Queen Street's the former Rite Aid facility. I-84 is located to the north on page right. There is an existing traffic signal with our driveway directly on the east. We're fronting along Queen Street, Route 10 under DOT jurisdiction. There is an AT&T cell phone tower to the rear of the site. Obviously, there's parking and traffic circulation all the way around the existing building. There's an existing driveway connection to the liquor store to the south of our site. The zone is entirely surrounded by B2 business zone. So for our proposed conditions, the Rite Aid pharmacy, or rather Walgreens pharmacy, is going to be completely demolished. Zoom in here a little bit for you. We're going to make way for a new 4,700 square foot convenience store, 7-Eleven building right here in the center of the site. There's going to be proposed 10 pump positions, 2 dispensers per pump, so a total of 20 dispensers. Underground fuel tanks located in front here as well. We're going to maintain the existing curb cut to Queen Street with the existing signal in the front. The driveway along the northern property line will be maintained. The existing dumpster configuration in the far rear of the site will be maintained. There's parking entirely around the perimeter of the site. The access to the south adjacent liquor store development will be maintained under proposed conditions. A couple of housekeeping things I forgot to mention previously is we did receive approval for inland wetlands under the administrative approval. There's a stream located just off our property to the north here, and we are proposing development within 50 feet of that. So we did go through the inland wetland aging and received administrative approval for that. The zoning regulations require a special exception for gasoline fueling stations. Back in July, we had received the special exception from ZBA, so that component is also satisfied. So we're here again for the site plan approval as the last component for the local permitting process. So back to the proposed site plan. Again, the driveway to Queen Street will be maintained. The site is adequately parked. There's 46 proposed parking spaces. We did receive some comments from engineering. I talked to the town engineer this morning. We received comments from the planning department. One thing I wanted to specifically mention is that the planning department had identified that the site may have appeared a little bit overparked. This site was a little bit interesting because we're proposing 46 spaces. The zoning regulations don't exactly define if you should park out a multi-use building. So we went a little bit conservative perhaps and associated this with all retail development. In retail, if this were assigned all retail, it would require 15 spaces for code. If it was all gas station use, it would have been 94 spaces, and I think 94 is a little excessive to be considered. So we submitted an application, assuming this was all retail. We had some discussions with the planning department. They had questioned, well, it doesn't seem appropriate. So we went back, we worked with the planning department, and there was one specific comment that they had in their comments that addressed, well, what are we going to do with the overpark? So we took a second look at the zoning regulations and the proposed use for the 7-Eleven. Yes, it's convenience store retail use, but it also has a restaurant component to it. There's a new program, sister program that they're rolling out called Raise the Roost Chicken and Biscuits. So they do have a restaurant component. There are seating inside the building. They also serve pizzas and other obvious fast food convenience store items such as coffees, etc. So you can also consider this a restaurant type of use. And a third, obviously, it has the gasoline filling station component. So we went back and reanalyzed the parking requirement based on retail, restaurant use, and gasoline filling station. And if you assign appropriate square footages to the building, you come out with a required parking of 42 spaces. We're proposing 46. So with 42 to 46, we're just under 10% over. So we do feel like we're adequately parked without an excess of parking for the site. We did submit that response to the town planner, and he did indicate he did accept and feels that response is acceptable. Again, I had discussed with the town engineer a number of comments this afternoon. He unfortunately couldn't have any written comments, but we did go through a number of his concerns with the site plan this afternoon. One of them was with stormwater management. I understand the MS4 requirements for the town are pretty stringent. You do have significant requirements for water quality and detention. So we did submit a stormwater management analysis for the site. I assured the town engineer that the site, although this is an increase in impervious area, it's about a 4,000 square foot increase in impervious area. We are proposing appropriate means of detention to mitigate any peak stormwater runoff from the site. There is a detention. It's going to be a very shallow, right up in this corner, right just north of the site. This is a very shallow stormwater detention basin. You almost just consider it a grass ditch area. There is going to be a stone infiltration in the middle, so we're going to infiltrate whatever we can. It's going to take entirely roof runoff from the building, so the roof is effectively disconnected from the rest of the stormwater management system. And that detention system alone is able to provide enough detention for the overall impervious increase to actually mitigate the increase in peak stormwater runoff. And at the end of the day, the site is designed appropriately to minimize and reduce peak stormwater runoff. The town engineer and I discussed, and he appeared satisfied with that. And all the other essential components for your MS4, we have deep sump hooded catch basins to trap sediment and floatables from the site. The existing Rite Aid site had 2 water quality units that we're actually going to be maintaining for this proposed development, so we don't have to change out water quality units. We actually confirmed with the manufacturer of the water quality units, so we're pleasantly surprised that they were adequately sized. So there's going to be water quality measures for the site, stormwater detention for the site, and all those components are satisfied. The site is appropriately landscaped. You can see throughout the parking rows here, we have landscaped islands intermittently placed within the excessive rows of parking to account for the appropriate internal landscaping requirement per code. There's a number of street trees along the frontage here. There's actually required 2 trees per every 50 linear feet. It's much, but we're accommodating it. We need to accommodate the zoning regulations for landscaping. There is a vegetated buffer for any parking within the front yard setback, so we're providing the buffer here. The majority, and a couple extra trees over on the side. So landscaping per code is satisfied. Site lighting, there is no light spillage onto abutting properties. It's full cutoff, 0-foot candles at the property line. However, we do make sure that the canopy is adequately lit for site safety. The rear of the building, obviously, we have a drive aisle around the back, so that's adequately lit for site safety. Full erosion and setup control plan for construction. So the site is fully zoning compliant, like I mentioned. Before I hand it off to our traffic engineer, he's going to discuss a little bit more about why we're requesting the waiver for the specific zoning regulation section. But I did mention before, we received staff comments from the town planner. We had responded to all of those comments, and it appeared that we'd satisfied all the comments except for the one about this level of service drop, which we'll discuss with the waiver in a moment. We received comments from the water department. All the comments from the water department appear to be construction in nature, just confirming water main sizes, profile. So there's no issues with the water department comments that we have. And the comments but the comments that I discussed with the town engineer this afternoon, we were able to, I believe I was able to address all of his concerns. And I believe he sent an email to the assistant town planner indicating he was satisfied with any comments he had. So I believe all the staff comments were satisfied. Now, before I hand it over to Jason, with respect to this waiver we're requesting, section 9-03, it's essentially has your site plan approval process in it, and it says, so I paraphrase, the commission has the ability to waive any component or some component of subsections of 9.03. And section 9.03.17 specifically addresses level of service drops in a traffic study. Now, we needed to perform a traffic study for this site because the signal was out of time when the pharmacy had closed. The DOT came in and retimed the signal on us. And when we did a traffic study, we noticed that the signal timing was inadequate for this proposed development. And when we went through and reran the traffic analysis, we found that there is a very slight level of service drop with one of the afternoon categories, and I'll let Jason handle that in 1 second. But what we understand through our study is that the level of service drop is not significant, and I think we have a very good justification of how the commission is allowed and can waive that section to allow the site plan approval of the site. So unless there's any specific comments about the site layout, I'd like to hand it over to Jason Adams. He can talk a little bit more about the traffic.
Thanks, Mark. What we usually do is let everybody from your team talk, and then we'll open up the questions on this side. But
Okay, perfect.
Good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with McMahon Associates. And as Mark stated, we did prepare a traffic impact study that conforms to your zoning regulations, specifically looking at the issue around our project site driveway. This project, at the end of the day, should we receive approval here, will require an encroachment permit through the Connecticut Department of Transportation to change the signal timings, essentially back to what they were, maybe a bit of more minor modification from what they had been when the pharmacy was in place, but we will require Connecticut DOT approval. Section 9-03.17 has two primary components after explaining the necessity of the traffic impact study. One is that a level of service C be maintained along all through movements. So our study focused at the site driveway here with the Route 84 eastbound ramp and the adjacent signalized intersection to the north with the Route 84 westbound ramp. During all time periods, we looked at weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and Saturday midday peak periods. All of the through movements along Queen Street are shown to be level of service C with the project in place. So we meet that portion of your regulation. However, during the weekday afternoon peak period, we don't see any change in level of service. That's 9-03-17-3 in your zoning regulation, is you can't have a change in level of service as a result of a project. So the weekday afternoon peak period, we do not have a change in level of service along Queen Street. However, in both the weekday morning and Saturday midday, we see a level of service B become a level of service C only on the southbound movement on Queen Street approaching our site driveway. So one single movement between those two intersections for two time periods, but going from B to C. And that C, again, that C is also within your regulation. So we're still meeting the part of the regulation that requires the level of service C, which we feel is the more important part. That's maintaining your traffic flow in front of the site along the primary road, in this case, Queen Street. Our project, primarily as a function of the project being slightly bigger than the pharmacy that had been there before, does turn the one movement from B to C, and thus we are requesting a waiver from the commission, which, as Mark explained, we do interpret that you have the discretion to grant us this waiver. And just to put an end cap on all of that, again, we will need to go through the Connecticut DOT process. So they'll be looking at all of the information that we've prepared, and they, of course, will be very protective of the state roadway system, Queen Street, and ultimately have jurisdiction over our project's ability to change the traffic signal timings at that location. So be happy to answer any questions. Mark, I don't know if you have more within the presentation just to wrap up, or...
thanks, Jason. Mark, I just said thanks to Jason. So, Mark, it looks like you're next up.
No, I just wanted to thank you for your time. And if you had any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, that's where this happened. So any member of the commission have any questions for the applicant? Start with Commissioner Coles.
This is for the traffic study piece. Can you, for the benefit of everybody, explain the difference realistically between low of service B and low of service C?
Sure. So level of service is on a grading scale of A to F. It's very similar to school grades. looking to avoid the F. Level of service A, really you're only going to see in areas that do not have much traffic at all. Like that's pretty rare. Along a corridor like this, close to a major interstate like 84, level of service A is kind of off the table, just as a matter of principle with the amount of traffic volume. So the level of service B to level of service C, getting into the technicalities of it is a difference. Level of service B is from 20 to 30 seconds of average vehicle delay. Level of service C is from 30 to 40 seconds of average vehicle delay. So there's the grading system is scaled based on the amount of average vehicle delay incurred by a driver. But in a corridor like this, level of service C and even level of service D is considered to be completely adequate to serve the needs of the corridor. So you want as low a level of service as you can get, but when you start factoring in development and multiple sources of traffic, such as a ramp system, level of service C, or again, even level of service D is quite appropriate.
So are we looking at level of service that's from your driveway, so that raise in 10 seconds or so, that's from your driveway to Route 10?
We are looking, the key part of the zoning regulations deals with Queen Street itself. So the movement southbound is in the movement coming from the 84 ramps moving towards the site, that southbound movement. That's the particular movement where we see the change in level of service.
And that would be caused from more traffic coming out of your driveway?
Essentially, that is caused because there are more left turns into the site. So the southbound through movement is in conflict with the northbound left turn movement. So as the signal requires more time for the northbound left turn movement, it takes time away from the southbound through movement, similar to how it operated with the pharmacy. But again, our project is larger than the pharmacy. So we see the change in level of service as a result of that. It's how the signal is allocating time.
Thank you. That sheds a lot of light for me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Caleb. Any other questions? Commissioner Santago?
So I think it's good that something is going there, because a building that remains vacant becomes blight, and that doesn't help anybody. So just a question, was the existing building, because like tearing down a building that size and then building another one, that's a lot of cost for you guys. So I'm wondering, what was you couldn't repurpose that building? Was it advantageous for you to repurpose that or change it a bit?
No, I think just because of the nature of how the fueling operations needs to be, especially with the gas pump operation.
Yeah.
I think I could probably flip it over to the existing building. So kind of, if you can kind of like focus on this area here.
Yeah.
If I flip it over, the entire existing building is pushed much more forward than our building's situated back in this area here, and then
Yeah.
the pumps need to be up here. So
Okay.
to having what
It didn't work for your model.
yeah, you're never going to put the pumps into a
Right.
building retrofit.
Okay.
And the angle is just not obtrusive.
Okay.
You know.
No, fair. If you go back to the to your rendering.
Yep.
So first of all, do you have a rendering of the building that you're looking to
Yes.
put somewhere?
Yep. I appreciate you bringing that up, because I
well,
did miss bringing that up. So this is the front elevation of the building. I'll zoom into the bottom one here. This will be the
Yeah.
front. This is just a basic schematic. Now, we understand that signage is going to be completely separate, so don't hold signage to this application. But 7-Eleven obviously has the classic, I guess you can't really tell, but it's the orange, green, and red banding.
Yeah.
Give me one more. There's an abundance of window glazing in the front, and that's actually for security effect. The store cashier is right up against the windows. They call it the fishbowl effect. For any police driving by, they can see in the store, see if any riffraff's going on. But it's also double fold, where the cashier can clearly see outside the building, see the pumps, make sure everything's okay. And then the rest of the architecture of the building. These are the gray area abandoned here. These are fiber cement panels. This is much more of a modern building. I think you've seen a lot of the new McDonald renovations have this kind of gray fiber cement
Yeah.
panels going on. This portion over here, this kind of darker blue, the color doesn't really reflect too well, but these are corrugated metal wall panels. And then these are wood siding, cedar, vintage wood cedar vertical board siding. Around.
Wow.
Wow.
So.
Goodness.
Wow.
That's not cheap.
Well, there's certain contenders in the area. I mean, certain other convenience stores who I'm sure you've seen around are really stepping up their game. So 7-Eleven wants to make a significant investment. It's a great intersection. I think it's a great use for it. And they want to make a presence.
Right, great. If you go back to the site plan, please. So, because it is a great spot, and I can't remember another gas station on Queen Street that has a light to get in and out. I think Shell, you're kind of like, kind of, sort of, but not really. So in regards to that, and particularly in regards to the liquor store next to you, so my questions have to do more with traffic flow.
Okay.
Because people will use that cut through from the liquor store to go through your property to get to the light. Because getting out of the light of the liquor store on Queen Street isn't always kosher. So there's cut through. There will be cut through traffic there. And that liquor store is pretty popular. And now we're having folks come into a gas station versus a Rite Aid. And so you're going to have increased traffic going everywhere. So I guess my question, not concern. Well, I guess it's concern. My question has to do with, are we going to have arrows? How's the traffic flow do you envision coming in and out of the property, both from Queen Street and indeed from the other access point? Because things could get kind of crazy getting in and out of there. Because I expect your property to be very popular.
I could see
mean, right off the highway, you're going to see it. I mean, I can't imagine that doing badly.
So I understand your concerns. There's a couple ways to kind of look at this. Number one, this through movement I would consider that a benefit, especially if it's taking a little bit of traffic and reducing the taxation on Route 10.
Sure.
If anybody just wants to come here and then kind of go next door and do whatever business they need to do at the liquor store, or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
So I think in that regard, it is a benefit.
Yeah.
Because it takes some of the tax off of the right of way. I don't know I can't speak on how much traffic would cut through.
No, I guess they're complementary. I see it as complementary back and forth.
Right.
I guess so. That's not my concern. My concern is how to process the flow of cars.
Right.
I mean, are you going to have striping? Are you going to have arrows in and out? That kind of thing to manage.
Right.
Manage the flow of cars. Not that it's complementary. I think it is complementary.
So having this front area through here, you generally want it a little bit more wide open. Having lane striping in there, it can be slightly confusing for drivers just because there can be a lot of movement. But this particular site design, we had the room to get what we wanted. In other words, I've done many convenience store gas stations. I've done the one on West Street in town, and some of them can be very tight.
Yeah.
If we can get up to about 30 feet between the parking spaces and the canopy, that's still fairly congested. We have 40 feet here between parking spaces and pumps. It's a nice wide open. It's very comfortable for the drivers. We feel very confident that there's plenty of room for cross traffic parkings. Anybody parking, anybody coming to the fuel positions. We feel like that 40 feet is not only appropriate for your drivers, but any fuel deliveries coming around, circulating the site have plenty of room and not blocking anybody.
Yeah.
I understand that, like I said before, we have a little bit of increase in impervious area, but I feel like it's appropriate here because we have the room, we can do it right. We have already managed the results of the impervious area, but I think we can kind of have the room and do it right here.
Right.
And then speaking of truck traffic, I did want to mention this. There was a concern. We had a preliminary meeting with town staff that any vehicle takers coming out may really clip this corner or exit and encroach into oncoming traffic here. We worked very hard with 7-Eleven's fleet team, which are not easy to work with sometimes. We've convinced them to have the tanker come back around the building and exit. And the benefit of coming back here is exiting and coming straight down and not conflicting with anybody wanting to turn in.
Okay.
So we have the room to do that. We wanted to take advantage of that.
Okay.
We satisfied some of the town's
All right.
comments.
Great. That's a good answer. Can you talk a little bit more you talked about restaurant or the Rooster thing or whatever, like what's the seating? Well, how does that go? Is that takeout? Is like you sit down and have something? What is that?
I believe I have the floor plan.
Have you ever been to a 7-Eleven, Commissioner?
Yeah, but I don't never sat down at 8. I mean,
You
I got
lined it up for me.
I got a Slurpee. I mean, what are you
You lined
doing?
it up.
Zoom in here.
I'm old. I'm old school.
New Jersey.
I would like to
Like
see
this.
as well, so I appreciate
Oh, here's the Zoom
it.
here.
For when I get my tenders.
The reason for my question is it's a sit-down type thing, and then you have people, it's additional parking. And so it's more not the use, I think that's great. It's more of the, how many people can we expect to remain there versus traffic flow going through? That's the basis of my question.
Right. I mean, I think it's a benefit for 7-Eleven personally, because if somebody's staying there and eating, maybe they see another snack that they want to finish off their lunch with.
Sure.
But anyway, so they have a new branding program where it's called Raise the Roost Chicken and Biscuits. So it's another type of food operation that they can offer to their clientele, chicken and biscuits. They offer pizza. There's pizza warming on site. And then obviously all your other snacks and ice creams and coffee.
Okay, that sort of thing. Okay.
There is seating up in this area here. It's not large. It's not like a large Chipotle or a Moe's or something.
That's my question.
It's
Okay.
not a McDonald's, so.
You answered it. Okay. I get it. And I like different things. I think it adds to stuff. So anything that's new, I think is a new business model, because everybody wants a new business model. I think that's advantageous. I think that's good. That's all I have now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you,
Commissioner Santaco. Any other questions from members of the
I
commission?
don't have questions.
Commissioner Volpe, followed by Commissioner Salke.
I just wanted to say something that Commissioner Santago brought up. I actually like, as it currently is to get gas on Queen Street is quite dangerous in my opinion. And I mean that seriously because you can tell a lot of people get off the highway just to fuel up to get back on the highway. It's one of the great benefits of our town that sometimes that trickles down into tourism for us. But I think this would allow a little bit more, and I want to hope, a little bit more relief on Queen Street as we were discussing, so that people don't go to that mobile on your right by Starbucks. Very dangerous situation over there with how people pull in. And the same thing for the show when you get people trying to, pull their life in their hands by crossing the 4 lanes. Yeah. And I'm being dramatic because it is dramatic. I've literally seen my life flash before my eyes on Queen Street. So I think that this is important, especially what you're mentioning, for us to consider, because it is a gas station with a light, with such prime highway access. Will it help the Queen Street problem? We can only hope, right? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Volpe. Commissioner Salke?
Just one question concerning the traffic on Queen Street heading north, turning into your facility. Is there a left turn lane there? I'm trying to visualize it. Is there a left turn lane? And also, okay, and is there an arrow there?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a protected movement, so that movement will go only by itself. It goes with the left turn movement onto the ramp.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner Salke? Commissioner Locks?
Yes, question. From Worldwide Liquors and you're going towards the pumps, is there a speed bump there in between?
Currently, no.
With that excess? My concern is people drive fast through a parking lot. And something like that would slow them down, so they're not going into the people that are either backing out, pulling forward, whatever they're doing.
I think that is a good traffic calming measure. And I don't think we would be opposed to adding something to that effect.
I think that's a good thought. So
good
you're
thought.
absolutely right.
Yep.
So,
Some
Sue?
signage in either a table or a bump.
Yeah, I think there's a stop sign there. I don't know if it's not
There
enforceable.
is, but
It's not
nobody pays
enforceable.
attention
I
to
know.
it.
Yeah.
So a speed bump would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll
Right.
pay
Slow it down.
attention to that.
Thanks,
Thank
Sue. Any other questions? Commissioner Woloski?
My question is for you, Mr. Chair or staff. The gentleman referenced that he believes all staff questions and concerns have been answered. Is that in fact the case? Is everything pending, anything pending, or has everything been answered sufficiently?
I did speak to Mr. Grocki today, and he accurately displayed portrayed all the engineering issues. The issue with the traffic signal is it's state controlled. I'm not sure the current phasing plan of the traffic signal and whether or not DOT is going to take any additional green time on Queen Street for that additional traffic for turning left onto the site, but that's going to be up to them. Unfortunately, they're not going to review it until we take action on this application. So I like the fact that the roof drainage is taken out of the equation to account for the increase in impervious area. So it's just minor housekeeping items. The applicant has to revise the plan in accordance with staff comments. Dave and the planning department reviewed the responses, but the plan has not been changed to accommodate those comments, but they were pretty minor in nature.
Thank you.
Bill Sutsky? Commissioner Albanese?
Yeah, I just have it's kind of interesting that this is before you, before us. I worked at a 7-Eleven in New Jersey when I was 17 years old, and this is definitely a little bit different, you know. So quite different
I wonder if
actually.
you have a conflict of interest.
And I worked long hours and did stocking and all that kind of stuff. But so it brings back some memories. But I have just two questions. Well, one question's just an inquiry more on the, I guess your not your mitigation plan, but maybe a contingency plan. Like what are you doing as far as reusing or recycling of the materials that are there now? Is there something that 7-Eleven Corporation has within their, you know, their policies that they take existing materials that are valid or good and could use them for the existing building, right? And whatever infrastructure might be good within the building, at part of the building or other parts of the site. Right, and reuse and recycling. And then also, if that's something that stays within the community, like maybe that would go to Habitat for Humanities or for the veterans, or, I mean, what's the policy? What is the corporate policy?
Interesting point, because there probably are.
Can you first identify yourself
sure,
and then
sorry.
speak
Dorothy
closer to the
Fleischman.
microphone, please, so people
Dorothy
can.
Fleischman with 7-Eleven.
Okay.
I haven't been through the building personally, but I'm sure there's material in there that might be beneficial to someone, and we could absolutely look at doing that.
Is that a corporate policy, or that's something that you typically do, or not?
Well, with building demo, we don't really demo buildings of this size.
Right, exactly. That's what I was
We did
thinking.
Danbury, Connecticut recently.
Right,
and
okay.
The building was really a mess,
Mhm.
but the materials on site were recycled and taken away and used elsewhere, and we use it on site.
Okay,
So
all
if we
right.
can, pulverize some of the material and use it on site, we do.
Okay, so you might integrate that in your demo plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, and is that, the demo plan is something that we typically could look at, or would that be part of our application process,
So-
that we would look at the demo plan?
So yeah, we did submit a demolition plan.
Okay.
And funny enough, not the building, but a large number of stormwater structures are proposed to be reused, because I was able to design the site
Great.
stormwater management system to not only keep a lot of the catch basins,
Okay,
assuming they're in good condition, we're going to inspect them.
right.
But a lot of the catch basins and a lot of the existing pipes, which actually saves a ton on cost.
Sure
so you don't
does, yeah.
excavate and replace. So I thought that was actually another benefit there. And if you notice this drive aisle up at the north here,
Right.
we don't need to change this entire drive aisle, which is kind of a rarity, but we're just going to kind of mill and overlay it, so the pavement will look new. But in that terms of a site development, this is kind of a rarity, because we're able to reuse a lot of components that way.
Excellent. That's great. That's great. And I think the only last comment I have and I know everybody's like sick of, sitting around, but there was the 7-Eleven South here on Route 10. I don't know how many years ago, and I don't know the marketing, what happened with that. It was never utilized, and I guess it just failed. I don't know anything, if maybe Lou has some information or input on that, but I'm thinking, because this is more closer to the highway exits, and then also with the encouragement of having all the bays now, and it's got a different kind of look about it and function.
So those legacy stores are really what we're trying to move away from.
Okay.
And so this will be the fourth one in the state that, if my timing works out the way I hope it will, with this new image. And this is really the kind of footprint that we're looking to do now.
Okay.
Your sort of neighborhood 7-Eleven stores are really going by the wayside, and we're about to embark on a new program to optimize them and renovate them, because there's lots of them that need some work. So this is really the state of the art and what you'll see going forward. So we're pretty excited to bring it here, and we're lucky to have a lot of this size where we have the capacity to really make it convenient and not scary for, trucks and people and gas, and it works out really well. So we're really happy about that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Commissioner Gork? Did you have a question? No?
I do not.
I don't know. Teresa was waving at you.
I have a
so-
question for you.
Oh, well,
Do we have to have a separate motion to grant the traffic waiver? Is that going to be, is that how?
I think that procedurally, it probably makes sense
Okay.
to do that when we get to that point. Any other questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Volpe for a second time.
For a second time, Commissioner Volpe here. I was just wondering, generally, is it a 24-hour 7-Eleven? Like if I want chicken at midnight? Okay, cool. It happens, you never know.
Satisfy that urge, didn't you?
After I get my car washed, I can go get some chicken.
Biscuits at midnight actually sounds pretty good. I got to
Are
You
you
know
all
what
set?
happens in
Are
our
you all
house.
set, Christina?
Yes, I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay, so my questions have to do, I did have the question on hours of operation, so it is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation?
Yeah, that's the
what the
intent.
plan is. Lighting. What's your plan on the type of lighting? I tried to look at the plan to see if there's anything in there, but I didn't see anything. I could have missed
There-
it, but
They're,
what type of-
I'll admit, they're a little
what type
confusing
of
to read.
exterior lighting are you using on the building itself? Let's start with that.
On the building itself. Well, I know they're all LED fixtures. I apologize, I'm not the architect, so I don't know specifically. Can you speak on any of this building lighting itself? I'm sorry, I'm just not the most well-versed with the,
Well, let me tell you where I'm going here is that, I'm particularly sensitive to dark sky requirements.
Okay.
And, over the course of the last couple of years at least, that we've had sort of an unadopted policy or whatever to try to encourage when these buildings are built, that there's dark sky compliant lighting on the exterior of that building. Well, I understand it's right next to 84 and they have their streetlights out there. I don't want to exacerbate the problem by adding more lighting to it if we can avoid it. And it's simple gooseneck lighting that keeps the light on the building is what I think you're looking for.
yeah, any
It
wall, any,
also keeps it out of the sky so it doesn't make it.
right, there's certainly no uplighting. Yeah, I didn't want to get too technical into the site lighting, but there's a new BUG bug rating, and it has to do with uplighting. There's zero uplighting for this.
Okay.
They're kind of shying away from this full cutoff, but it's still considered full cutoff because of the old regulations haven't caught up yet. But yes, I can assure you, there's definitely no uplighting proposed for the building. Everything's downcast. Everything's cut off at the property line. It's all for site safety, all LED, but there should be no issues with 84.
Okay. I understand too that signs are a separate application. I will offer you this as the person who was point of contact on writing our sign regulations a couple of years ago. The pylon sign that you have in your plan is not allowed. So you need to adjust that. And I encourage you to look at section 13 of our regulations. It talks about our sign regulations.
Yeah, we have full intention to submit a separate
And
plan.
I would hope that there's no plan, because I don't think it's allowed, to provide for anything beyond date, time, and temperature on an LED display. Although being a gas station, you are allowed to advertise up to 4 different prices. So with regards to the turning radii in the site, are you going to offer diesel fuel as part of your operation?
Yes.
So truck traffic is possible to go into that area. I'm talking 18-wheelers may be going in there to fuel
I mean,
up.
the site is not designed to accommodate, I mean, the nozzles on these are not high flow nozzles. For any type of larger tractor trailer, you really need a high flow nozzle.
Okay.
This is not going to be the type of site.
I'm not versed in such things, so I appreciate the education, but,
The thing that I do know about tractor trailers is they don't want to come onto a site like this.
Okay.
They really object to mingling with consumers and having to make difficult movements, and, there's just not enough room for them on the site, and they won't want to come.
and lastly, I appreciate that, thank you. I understand that too, right? We have a truck stop up the street, but last question is your screening of your waste bins. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the existing dumpsters are in the same exact location as the proposed. We're not proposing to change the dumpsters at all. There is I'm just gonna try to zoom in a little bit more here. There is a masonry wall 3 sides around the dumpster today. We're gonna be proposing to maintain that masonry wall. We're just gonna maybe face it up, repaint it, and the The doors on the front, the screening doors in the front, they're a little dilapidated. I think they're actually chain link with slats right now. 7-Eleven plans on revamping the doors, make it a little bit nicer to flow better with the architecture of the building. So it's going to be the same exact spot as before. We're not changing the footprint of it. But yes, it's going to get a general facelift, and it has appropriate screening now, but it's going to look better once we're done with it.
Okay, and building materials, I'm assuming you're using on the building just cinder blocks, nothing, you're not using any wood or anything like that? That's part of that design?
I believe so.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The structure of the building is from SIPS panels. They're sort of a prefab panel.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, staff, is this ready to be acted upon?
Yeah, it's ready for action, but if we could stipulate staff comments as part of the motion.
Okay. So does the applicant have anything else to add before we move forward here?
No, I think I just want to, thank you for your time. I know the last couple sessions have been pretty grueling, but we're happy to be here. I was happy to present tonight, and we're excited to be around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks to the whole team there.
Thank you.
You got a good firm, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm familiar, so I'm kind of just kidding about the Weathersfield thing, but not really, so. Okay, so I think procedurally, if we want to move on this, we should start with the waiver of section 9-03.17, which has to do with the level of service part of the application. So I think that we should first entertain, if we're going to allow for foregoing that we should probably have a motion to waive that with regards to this application as it was presented.
So, Mr. Chair, just procedurally, wouldn't it be wiser to approve the site plan and then things according to it procedurally? Or do we have to do the plan, or is it contingent upon because a traffic plan is contingent upon this site? I mean, just order-wise.
In my brain, Peter, it's
Yeah.
working the other way. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, it's going to end up being whatever it ends up being.
Fair enough.
But in my mind, I want to get the traffic to waive that so that we can approve the site plan or take action on
Okay,
the
you're
site
with that
plan.
way. Okay. I
Because
see where you're
it's
going.
almost like a sidewalk
Got it.
waiver if you waive a sidewalk requirement.
I'm with you now.
Okay. Anyway, so if there's no further discussion, then I'll look for a motion on that part of the application.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion that we approve the waiver at 9.03.17 on SPR 1825.
So we have a motion for Commissioner Salker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locks with a second. Any discussion? Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gort,
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Woloski,
Yes.
Commissioner Locks,
Yes.
Commissioner Santago,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka,
Yes.
Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes, motion passes. Now we're looking for a motion on the site plan approval or otherwise. And as Mr. Grappone mentioned, he'd like to see a contingent on working through those engineering comments administratively. And I think, if I may, Commissioner Locks brought up a great idea about putting a traffic calming measure out there in the form of a speed bump, yes.
I agree with that.
So, but
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPR 1825 with stipulation that there's a speed bump between the two facilities, the liquor store and the new facility, the 7-Eleven, and also to include the staff comments, complete the staff comments as part of this application.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locks with a second. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chair, just one
Commissioner Ward, go
clarification. Do we want to specifically say speed bump or leave it as some measure to slow traffic? Because I don't know if there's humps or they have they have a bunch of different strips they could put down. So I don't know if it matters.
I
mean,
honestly
it's
think
in
speed bump
comments,
is the
so-
only thing that can slow them down.
Right.
If you put the grooving of the pavement,
Yeah,
that doesn't
they
slow them
just
down.
run
It
right
just
over it.
irritates them, doesn't slow them down. I think the speed
They're
bump.
gonna wreck their car on the speed bump, they slow down.
Yeah. I don't rip off the muffler then.
Commissioner Gork, are you satisfied with Commissioner Feltes?
Yeah, I was just worried if for some reason,
You put it very eloquently.
yeah, if they weren't allowed to actually have a speed bump there for some reason or not, then it would, yeah, but that's fine.
Jim, you don't think that a speed bump causes any issue there? On the,
There's several kinds. There's speed tables, speed
Yeah.
humps, speed bumps. The one like we have out here is more of like a hump. The speed bumps are more like, you know, you're really stopping, otherwise you're losing your under.
I think that's
I
what we
think
need.
that's what we
I think
want,
that's what we want.
They want.
rather than a stop sign.
The cattle grate doesn't work.
okay. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on this? Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gork?
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes.
Commissioner Woloski?
Yes.
Commissioner Locks?
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Salka?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good job, Lou. Excellent job
Welcome to
on this.
Southington.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to see that building is going somewhere, so.
For my midnight chicken.
So the next.
Chicken at midnight, that's
The
what I
next,
heard.
yeah. The next three items, items A, B, C, and D, are all tabled because they're an active public hearing.
Yep.
So we can't take action on those. Moving to item 8E, Lovely Development Incorporated, special permit application to establish an open space preservation subdivision property located at 1268 West Street, owned by CB West LLC et al. In an R40 zone, SPU 652. What's our pleasure?
Mr. Chair, two things.
Commissioner
I
Gork,
need to
you're recused.
recuse myself. And the other thing, do we need to continue those other ones or do we just, you can leave it at, we need voice votes?
The public hearing is still open on
Okay.
those, so Commissioner Gork has been recused, and Commissioner Albanese, we will sit you in his place.
Thank you.
So again, we're on item 8E, and what's the commission's pleasure there?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve SPU 652. After reviewing section 3.07.3, section E, that I feel this is the most appropriate use of the land on the two options.
We have a motion from Commissioner Salker. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair. I think to agree with Commissioner Salka, I mean, we're faced with two options this evening. And from my perspective, the option as presented is give Southington and this use the best use of the property. And I think also by version of it now being a special permit, it allows this commission latitude to impact the site plan and address other things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. So I think
Okay.
by virtue of doing this, it allows us a little more leeway. And I think given the explanation in regard from open space to the other one, I agree with Commissioner Salka that between the two, I think is the best way to go.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Any further discussion from members of the commission on this application? I will just say what I said earlier, that developing and enhancing our corridors for wildlife is a positive step. I looked at this as an opportunity to do that. Additionally, adding open space of any measure, whether it's 3 acres or 17 acres, is a positive thing that we all have been a part of over the last couple of years, adding, as I've said before, over 100 acres of open space through this commission over the last 2 years. And when looking at the options of 17 versus 3, the math is pretty simple. I hear the traffic concerns that people are bringing up. I understand that Churchill is very narrow at its entrance, or exit, I guess, depending on your direction. And I'm hopeful that something could be done about that. I'm not so sure that that's a role of this application or not, but we'll wait and see what the site plan brings to us later on down the line at some point, I hope. So with that, Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes.
Commissioner Woloski?
Yes.
Commissioner Locks?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Albanese?
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago?
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you sometime in the future. Item 8F, petition of the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission to enact a zoning regulation amendment of text to create a new section 11-24 of the zoning regulations regarding recreational cannabis / marijuana, zone amendment 611. This was tabled from August 17th. Commissioner Gork is now reseated. Thank you for your service, Commissioner Albanese.
No problem. Thank you.
Do we have discussion / a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve ZA number 611 as
No,
submitted.
No, you're out of order, sir, so, thanks. Okay, is there any further, so we have a motion on the table, do we have a second? Do we have a second of the motion by Commissioner
You gonna second this?
Salka? Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wolowski with a second. Any further discussion on this?
I think just, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the staff, because I know you asked staff to draft language. And I thought staff, and I think legal counsel too, I don't know if Jeremy Taylor was part of it, but I think staff and legal counsel, I think, put forward a comprehensive regulation. And I think, like I said before, it further, I don't want to say confirms, but what this regulation did 2 years ago in regards to accepting medical marijuana and our thoughts toward recreational. So medical marijuana is indeed allowed in the town of Southington, but this would not be. And I thought they were very thorough in regards to thinking throughout supply chain and thinking throughout the impact it would have on the town, and not just a retail dispensary, but could change the landscape. So I give council and town staff credit for, I think, drafting a well-written regulation.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Any further comments or notes from other commission members? Seeing none, Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gork?
Yes.
Volpe?
No.
Commissioner Wolowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Locks?
No.
Commissioner Santiago?
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley's yes, motion passes 5-2. Moving on to item 8. Well, 8G is tabled because it's still an active public hearing. Item 8H, Diane L. Kelly, care of Jeffrey M. Massacott, site plan application for proposed addition with home office and 4 parking spaces, property located at 1506 West Street in a WSB zone, SPR 1827. The applicant is present.
Yeah.
You just start by identifying yourself and give us your address, please.
Yep, my name is Jeff Massacott with my girlfriend Diane Kelly. We're the property owners of 1506 West Street. And
Maybe turn it over. Oh, you got it in? Sorry.
I think I got it. I hope I got it. We're the property owners of 1506 West. And I'm new at this. Harry Coles is our folks, and they couldn't make it this evening. So you're stuck with me. So if I can.
You're on the right one. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay. And he told me to start with this presentation one.
There you go.
Okay, we're getting there. So as we said, we're from Bristol, and I'm an accountant, stockbroker, financial planner in Bristol. We're leasing a property right now in Bristol, but the lease is going to be ending soon to further development by somebody else. So we started looking for a property where we can open up a small in-home office for myself, as well as a residence for us as well. So we looked all over. We found this place here in Southington on 15 West. Few things with the property that we liked. It's got historic value, which we were very intrigued. It was built in 1742. And at that time, George Washington, I guess, was 10 years old. And we'd like to preserve that property. That's the upfront property up here. We'd like to preserve that home. In the back of it, there was an addition back here that we had removed, or going to remove. We got it through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they were okay with that. That addition in the back was right on the property line. So now we're giving back or taking away from the property line somewhat. We got our variances permitted. The Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously approved it all. We got our setback, so we're going to build our home here. We have our entranceway in from West Street, and for the safety of ourselves as well as the occasional clients that'll come to the office, we're not going to permit an exit onto West Street. So we're going to help with that traffic stuff that everybody's talking about. We don't want traffic going out onto West Street there. Instead, we'd like to have the traffic exit down below on West Pine, which they can also enter from West Pine as well. So we don't want to have any more traffic coming out onto 229 from our property. It'll come out from West Pine, and already at the end of West Pine, it's a right turn only. So trying to, for the safety of ourselves and our clients. And then we're going to have our driveway in the back of the house. It's a one-level home, single level. Inside on the second floor, there'll be a little loft bedroom up there, but it's otherwise cathedral ceiling and so forth. The existing home that's there now, the old house, we're doing our best to preserve everything there to keep the antiquity. That's roughly going to be 900 square feet, and our home is going to be approximately 2,500 square feet. We thought that this would be a nice use for this property. One, it's the beginning of the West Street Business District, which we understand is supposed to be some like mixed use, business, residential. And we thought that would be a nice segue into that neighborhood. Likewise, when you leave that district, it'll be a nice segue back to the residential areas, if you will. We're a small volume business. I'm an accountant, stockbroker, financial planner. I think this week I had 2 appointments. Maybe next week I have 3 or 4 appointments coming in, if that. During tax season, limited amount of clients coming in. We do a lot now with Zoom. A lot of my tax base, a lot of my clients, believe it or not, are from around the country. So I have clients sending in their paperwork from Florida, Texas, California, wherever. And a lot of the investment stuff that I do with the clients, we can do that over the phone. We don't necessarily have to have them come in the office. So again, pretty low volume, if that. Again, for the antiquity purpose, we want to save that property. For the traffic side of things, we're going to be very low volume, and if it helps with the traffic, I can always walk down to Dunkin' Donuts down the hill and hoof it back, and I won't take my car, and I won't affect the traffic that way. And as far as repurposing, we have a few trees on the property, some hemlocks that have gone wild, which we'd like to cut a few of those down. We're going to have them dried, kilned, and use that in the building of our property too, like for posts in the porch and so forth, and repurpose some of those trees on the property. I guess that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Volpe?
So, as our resident historian on the commission, I'm just wondering, are you working with the State Historic Preservation Office in ensuring that you're keeping the conformity of the historic structure? Has there been any contact between that office?
Yeah, which was a little alarming when I talked to them. First of all, the property is not on the historic register.
I see that it's included as a secondary structure within the National Register district of Plantsville, actually. Charles Woodruff was one of the founders of Southington.
Correct. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, related to Sam Woodruff as well.
Correct. He wrestled with the Native Americans to gain respect, and that's how we built the town we are on today.
Right. Well, yeah, it was still Farmington. We're looking for records in Farmington right now. No, so what happened was I guess they tried to push it through for the National Historic Register back in, I believe, 87 or 88.
Likely, yeah.
And there were a handful of residents that chose not to continue, and they objected to it. So those properties did not get put on the historic register.
Is it on the State Register of Historic Places then, if you've been in touch with the State Historic
That's
Preservation?
why I talked to the woman from the State Historic Register.
Okay.
And that's fine, because we still want to retain that property historic value. I mean, we don't want to take it down. We don't want to remove
I understand.
Yeah.
Are you attaching anything to the structure as it is currently?
Correct. So the I don't have a pointer, but the, this part here, the old house, we're gonna be connecting, abutting right up behind it for our residents right here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll technically be able to walk from our living room and head into the office, do some paperwork.
I am a
Back to have
reasonable
lunch.
historic preservationist. I do believe it's always better to, well, it is always better to try to do what you can to maintain. I love that this is your idea for it.
Yep.
I do just wonder, since Southington lacks in a historic district commission or really any kind of preservation regulations on our body, if maybe there can be coordination between the town planning department and SHPO to ensure that we're maintaining some sort of character, or if we stipulate within our regulations that the historic structure has to remain as it is visible from the roadway at this time. Will that change, in your opinion, what we see currently of the structure? Like, is it gonna look like a tiny little historic house with like a huge butt of new stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
And that's what I was talking to her about. The house is painted brown right now.
Correct.
Our house, we want white. And I'm insisting that that house remain brown in color.
Okay.
With, you know, the brown roof, cedar type of roof. Our house, we want it to remain white with a black tin roof. But I want that old house to stand out.
Okay.
I want that to be the focal point of that property, is what I'm looking to do.
And I appreciate that, because every historic structure lost is a piece of history that we can identify with. But again, to my fellow commissioners, I may say that I would stipulate that there be some sort of cooperation with SHPO to retain the historic, you know, effect of the structure, just to ensure. I trust what you're saying to me, it's on the record, but that's again one of the only things on West Street that remind us what West Street used to look like, right?
True,
As we
at the bottom
continue.
of the hill on the left, there was one that fell apart in the woods or whatever
Yeah.
by the pet place.
I'm surprised it's lasted this long, Charlie Woodruff. Good job. You know what I'm
Yes and no. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do in that house.
Yeah. Are you
Um,
planning on gutting the house?
No,
and-
no, no.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, can't afford to gut it and rebuild it. I've had one contractor that we talked to, and that was his first suggestion. Tear it down and build something on the footprint. Never mind. No, the wrong person. That's not what we want to do.
Excuse me just a moment. From hearing my fellow commissioners talking, I would just like to have from the planning department some sort of confirmation that this structure is not on the National Register or on the state register or on any kind of secondary inventory. We did have a 2017 architectural study of our town. Was this structure identified? My questions do have a merit. I'm not joking. And I don't think it's appropriate to discuss that while I'm still talking to the applicant. Thank you. No further comments. I would like to see that, please.
Mary Ellen, do we do, as a part of procedure, do we look at such things, whether to see whether it's registered on some national register somewhere, or?
I mean, I'd have to look into that for here. I don't know how it's been.
I would think that would be part of the zoning information. Jim, do you have something?
The only one that I can recall in my tenure was the historic building by the YMCA that was supposed to be demoed under the application.
That's a historic district, isn't it?
No, there is no historic
okay.
district. So we have contacts from SHPO. It should be easy to email them, and
I don't think it hurts to ask as part of anything else that we regularly ask. Also, doesn't it say within our regulations that we can ask about the history of a structure, especially one that's built?
I don't
George
think anyone's
Washington was
objecting to
10.
your request, Commissioner Volpe. I think you've won your argument, so,
I appreciate that.
but I just wasn't sure whether they did something like that in the past, or is this part of the procedure, so.
the YMCA property is the only one I can recall.
Well,
Yeah,
good thing
so-
we have an example.
So we should look. I know that when the south end arch zone was proposed, we discovered that there was some connection to the Underground Railroad, and that was preserved. Mr. Lovely preserved that as part of his development out there. So that was another one that was identified more recently, I think, than the YMCA, but it was one that was recent. So
We can
So-
certainly look into it. And
yeah.
circle back with you.
Again, I'm still saying that I really appreciate what you're doing and I value it. I also just think for this community's records, we should have that stuff and we should see it, especially for one of the oldest houses in our town. 1744? It's not a joke.
1742.
Dear God. What?
Yeah.
We weren't even founded as a town yet.
It's also a pain in the neck going to Farmington and looking up the land records for this property.
I can bet. I can
Everything's
bet.
measured in rods and all this other stuff.
Yeah, you have to go from
Yeah,
the rock at the corner to Layla
Yeah,
Whoever's
next to the
property.
birch tree. you know,
Yeah,
it's like-
I do it often. Yeah, I appreciate the efforts that
Horse
it
height,
takes.
and was it a big
Yeah.
horse, a miniature horse? I don't, yeah.
It's a lot of effort, and I really do commend you on that. I hope you see where I'm coming from asking for these
Oh,
things.
yeah, I mean, if you want to put that stipulation, that's fine, because that's what we're doing anyway.
Well,
I
why don't we find out what the status of it is before we take action on it?
Thank
So
you.
I think that's something that's remains outstanding on the application. So
I'm sorry?
we're just going to wait to hear back from town staff on whether it's registered on anything or what the historical significance on it is. So when we take any action that we might take, we have that information for our due diligence, if you will.
All right, I mean, I know there's a process for everything. We were just hoping that the sooner we can get this going through.
I'm
we
not
wanna get
trying to
shovels in the
I'm not
ground.
trying to delay you at all. I don't think anyone up here is trying to delay you at all. We're just trying to be cautious, given the historical
fine.
significance of that building and structure, and make sure we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face, you know, to
Yeah.
put it a different way, I guess. Commissioner Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up question. You guys had a little back and forth about the color scheme in the front and the back. The rear space is going to be about 2,500 square feet. The front's going to be about 900 square feet. The rear building, like the finish schedule of that, is it going to be similar to the front? Is it going to be kind of like that same architectural theme, I guess is my question?
Nope. It's, well, I guess, yes, no, I don't know. I'm sorry, this is the back of the house, the garage doors and the back porch and so forth. That's a side looking north from West Pine. But I guess the front of the house, here's the old house to the right, as it stands. And then we're gonna have a porch off to the side and then going to the front of our country style home, if you will,
Compatible.
you know?
Lovely.
So, and then here we got like, we call them fake barn doors. I mean, there's nothing behind it, but, you know, for the aesthetics and so forth. Like I say, cathedral ceiling in here. We're gonna have a loft bedroom up on this side. And like I said, we're gonna retain the old house here. And the old house, like I said, we want to keep it brown in color. We want to maybe cedar roof or something, but we want to retain that structure. And then the house, we're gonna have it white with wide siding. And we want to do that black tin roof and stuff. So this is our final place. This is our final home. Some people move north when they retire. Some people go south. We figure we're just going to go to Southington. That's as far south as we're going.
Good
And
decision.
We're happy with that.
I like
Looking
that.
forward to it.
It's a wonderful home.
It's better than Weathersfield.
Thank you.
Thank you for the description. I appreciate it.
You all set, Caleb?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
I
Commissioner
just had,
Warwick?
what's the point in delaying to find out if it's historical? If we wanted to stipulate that they work or coordinate?
I think we want to make sure that it's not registered on any registry out there, historical specifically.
Would
And
that
then-
deem it so they couldn't do this, you're saying?
No.
I think it's just something that if it was, or if there's something there, that we might want to approach it a little bit differently than not knowing what might be there.
Does that mean you?
It's
can
a
get an approval
precautionary move,
stipulation?
is what it is.
Correct. Like, excuse me, Mr. Chair, but correct. That's what we're kind of saying is just having all of that information before us will give us a more sound reasoning based off of the site plan that you're showing us, the brown and the white. You know, also the National Register or any kind of inventory form should tell us what building materials are in the structure, how sound the structure is. It's worth it to find out about a house that old, in my
So
opinion.
you all set, Jeff?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
didn't want to delay him for,
Yeah, I don't
It
think we're
didn't
trying,
come out to
I don't
mean
think we're
anything.
being unreasonable.
that
I
was
think
all
it's just-
fine with
it's just a-
stipulating
it's
that
just a-
they, like Christina said, that they work with whoever they need to work with.
It's just a safety precaution,
Okay.
I think, more than anything else, so. Any other questions or comments? We're obviously going to leave this one open, and we'll look for a motion to table it, but any other, before we do that, any other comments or questions of the applicant from members of the commission? Mary Ellen, could you work with your staff, please, to find as much information as you can on this one?
Yes,
And just pass it over to us when you get it?
yes.
Our next meeting is on September 21, 7 o'clock in this location. All right?
You go get further in the line, then kind of late.
Yes, I know. So do we have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table, Mr. Chair, until the 9/21 meeting pending planning department and engineering comments or whatever.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Volpe. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locke with a second. All those in favor, yes? Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 8I, request a renewal of existing registration for regulated activities in an aquifer protection area, 600 Woodruff Street. My understanding is this is the National Guard facility, and this is just a procedural move. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yep. Do we have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Commissioner Locke with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Santiago, any further discussion? Do we need the roll on this one, Mary Ellen?
I think what you just did was fine.
Voice vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8J, request the release of a $4,800 PI bond, 480 Queen Street, SPR 1593. Mr. Grappone, is this ready?
Ready for action. This is actually the liquor store sidewalk that they installed, and it's ready for action.
Okay, any discussion on this? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we approve SPR 1593 for the request for release.
Do we have a motion, Commissioner Saka? Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sataga with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8K, request for release of a 1,000 ENS bond, 480 Queen Street, SPR 1593. Mr. Grappone, I assume that this is ready as well?
Yes, from an erosion standpoint, they're all
Okay.
stabilized.
We have a motion?
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we approve SPR 1593 request for release.
I have a motion, second.
Second.
Commissioner Wodowski with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8L, request for release of a 6,600 P&I bond, 1116 West Street, SPR 1637. Mr. Capone, is this ready?
Ready for action. This is the Dunkin' Donuts sidewalk.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we approve SPR 1637 request for release.
Motion for Commissioner Salka. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Santago with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, administrative items. Request for administrative approval of site plan application of L&L West LLC for proposed Starbucks on property located at 1095, 1103 West Street, owned by S&G LLC in the B zone. This is SPR 1826. Mary Ellen or Jim, do you want to talk about this?
I think
Mr. Lovely.
should present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mark Lovely, member of L&L West LLC. The property located at 1095 West Street was original site plan approval that on this parcel, 1103 had a 3,000 square foot facility approved with a drive-through. With the new concept, we are actually going down to a 2,000 square foot building instead of a using proposed approved 3,000 square foot building. So that's really only the change. All the traffic was designed on the site to have a 3,000 square foot building here with a drive-through. There was another drive-through on the property that was approved by the DOT too that was not being used also. So basically the change is just going from the 3,000 square foot building, which was formerly for a coffee shop, down to a 2,000.
Thanks, Mark. And if I remember correctly, this was approved as a bank with a drive-through attached to it.
Exactly, and then we had the and also we had the drive-through for the coffee shop at the other end, which we did not install there.
Okay. So staff is looking for the ability to administratively approve this. Is there any objection to that?
Mr. Chair, I just want to mention I'd like to recuse myself from conversation on this.
Commissioner Gork
Case.
is recused.
Rather be
Commissioner
safe.
Albanese, we'll sit you again. You're busy tonight. Yeah. Seeing no objection from anyone, do we need a motion on this, Mary Ellen or Jim, or are you good with that?
We'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, legislative updates. Mary Ellen, you got anything for us?
Yes, so I emailed, I don't know how detailed you guys want to get tonight, but I did email all of you summaries, a couple summaries actually. I think there was the one I found useful was the one from Haller and Sage, which kind of outlined the significant legislation that's passed recently. The ones that I kind of wanted to bring to your attention are the predominantly the regulation associated with the accessory dwelling units, which essentially requires accessory dwelling units as of right in any zone that allows development for a single family home. If there's certain requirements for that, if the town can opt out of this regulation. If you don't opt out by January 1st of 2023, it essentially becomes effective regardless and your regulations become void. So, there's some strict things for that one. That one definitely differs from what Southington currently allows. It would allow for detached accessory apartments as of right. Right now, Southington only allows parent, grandparent in the existing dwelling. So there's definitely some changes to that. So that one is one that has a time frame associated with it. There's a second regulation for parking that also has an opt-out clause so essentially your regulation shall not require more than one parking space for each studio or one bedroom dwelling unit, or more than 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit with 2 or more bedrooms unless the municipality opts out. That conflicts with the current regulations as well. So we'll either need to decide to modify the regulations, or the commission chooses to, you choose to opt out of that one as well. Those two have the timeframes. The third one is the adoption of an affordable housing plan. Has to be prepared and adopted by June 1st of 2022. I have reached out to a couple consultants and gotten some quotes on that, so the wheels are spinning. So that one we can work with and meet that deadline.
So we don't have an existing plan in place?
An existing affordable housing plan? No.
Wow.
So that's one that has a time frame, but I think there's time to meet that one. Let's see, outdoor dining is another one beginning April 1st of 2022. You must allow outdoor dining as an accessory use to pretty much any food establishment subject to local administrative site plan review. I would probably want to look at the regs for that. I know some of the zones do allow it, but I don't necessarily know that it does everywhere where businesses are allowed. So those are the ones I wanted to get on your radar. There are many other things that the legislation calls that I think you guys are okay with respect to minimum floor area, cottage food industry. I believe that one fits. There's a couple other ones. I can't remember what the other one was. So there's several that are already met. I don't think you need to really worry about, but these other ones, I think, I don't like I said, I don't know how deep you want to go into conversation tonight, but it was definitely something I wanted to get on your radar because there are timeframes associated with those. And
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Could you do us a favor and just circulate those memos to us so we have those?
Yep.
And I'm just going to ask members to look at those and be prepared to come and talk about those on when we're back here again on the 21st. I have my own perception. I won't share it right now, but if people could take a look at those so that we could do whatever we have to or want to do on the 21st, that we're prepared to do that.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think they're out on our mail.
I don't know if the memo ever got circulated, Mary Ellen, you ever?
So I sent them
You sent
two
this-
guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have them.
Okay,
We have them,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'm just looking at them now.
So if members could just take a deeper look at those, and in my case, at least look at them, because I obviously missed it, but
I think it's under Karen. I don't think they're, I think Karen sent it out.
can we just be prepared to have an agenda item on this at the next one, and we'll put it towards the tail end, so public doesn't have to really wait around for this technical discussion, if you will, and just think about what you want to do. All right, anything further on that right now, or?
No, I will follow it up too with just a little bit of a summary on the act versus what the current regs are. Just to
Okay.
help you
That-
guys with
actually,
some
that
of
would
that
be good.
guidance,
That's
so I
probably
will follow up
perfect.
with that.
Okay. Thanks, Mary Ellen. Moving on to item number 11, items scheduled for public hearing. Do we have anything out there other than what's been tabled tonight?
No.
Nothing? Okay, and we have two new applications that are on our docket that we'll be looking at next time. Do you want to say anything about those, or we'll just let them speak for themselves?
The site plan ones. So there's
Yep.
in addition to an existing building up in 120 Industrial Drive. Those, I'm assuming those are the ones you're talking about, right? I believe it's an electric. Is it electrical? Do electrical work in their existing building, and they're going to put an addition off of the back side of that. Planning comments have been sent to the applicant on that. Have you sent your comments? Okay. So we're working on the comments for those, and then the other one is a site plan review for the for a proposed drive-through at the Queen Street Starbucks.
Oof.
Do that. Oh,
It's
wow.
so they're looking to acquire an easement from the state to expand out into the side, but that's another one that's
Yeah.
coming.
Wow.
Okay. One just keeps on coming down the pike on us, right? With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salker, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wolowski, apparently everyone else wants to stick around.
Thank you, Steve.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll still be waiting.
Yeah, I didn't get.
Of course.
Yeah.
Enjoy your evening. Thanks for coming out.
The other one was,
Ooh, am I really? My other chair. I'm just moving. I dipped it a little too low, that one.
I didn't, I don't.
Yeah.
Write those down.
Watch your step tonight.
Oh.